Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Tampa City Council is now open for our regular session of February 16th, 2023. Do you have invocation? Yes. Councilman Maniscalco.
Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure this morning to welcome Erica Allen, who is a pastor at Horizon Church, a new United Methodist congregation in Tampa. Their church recently purchased Panorama Bowling Alley in South Tampa and are renovating the bowling alley to accompany rooms for kids ministries and updating restrooms to accommodate members in our community with special needs. This building will still be used primarily as a bowling alley, including leagues and open lanes, but preserving this community icon and simultaneously building a community of people who shine light and ignite change at this iconic Tampa spot was close to her heart and that of the people in her church. While they wait for this project to be completed, the church meets at Wright's Gourmet, the best cake in town, in Tampa at 10 a.m. on Sundays and engage in ministry opportunities throughout the week. The ministry initiative she is most proud of is its church work with Caramonte Elementary in South Tampa. 20 people eat lunch with 4th and 5th graders each week, providing mentorship and positive adult support to kids who are entering the transition between elementary and middle school. This program has improved attendance, decreased behavioral referrals, and had a positive impact on the community. No one knows who loves the programs more, the kids or the mentors. Erica's heart is to shine light and ignite change right here in Tampa and engage young people in actively living out their faith. She loves this city and is so hopeful for the days ahead for Tampa and Horizon Church. So if you would please stand, Pastor Allen, please lead us in the invocation.
Good morning. I just want to take a moment and encourage us to take a good deep breath in and a good deep breath out and just be grateful and present to be in this room this morning. Let us pray. Dear gracious and loving God, thank you for each person in this room. Thank you for the people who give of their time and their lives to make our city better. Thank you for these councilmen and councilwomen who work late nights and early mornings to hear from constituents. May their work build a community that recognizes all people as people of worth and importance. Give these leaders wisdom as they make decisions and move our city forward. Give the people here to speak today calmness, peace, and strength. God, I pray for all the city leaders and community leaders in front of me and behind me. Give them strength to fight for the desires and visions you have put in their hearts. Give them rest and space to be quiet, that they may know themselves in your vision for a brighter and restored world. Give them assurance of their purpose and their importance in living out their purpose to build the best city in the entire world. For those in this room who are anxious and fearful, grant them peace. For those stressed and worn out, grant them joy in their work. For those who are angry and upset, help them to find resolution today. For those who've been wronged, give them the freedom that forgiveness brings and reconcile us to one another. For those here to celebrate today, multiply their joy tenfold. May those surrounding Connor and others, as they celebrate today, remind us that supporting one another truly builds a beautiful city. For our city, God, we pray for your protection. We turn on the news and we hear of violent acts in cities and across our world. This morning we lift up those in El Paso. We pray for those in Turkey who are recovering from the earthquake this week. We pray for your safety for all the people here in Tampa, for the children in their schools today, for the people who are shopping in our stores and malls, for those at work, for those traveling and walking and biking on our roads. Protect your people, God, and help us all to lead this city in a way that preserves life. For those who slept outside last night, for those kids who showed up to school with empty bellies and empty hearts this morning, for those who are showing up to work unsure of the future, help us to see them and create a community that cares for the least of these two. Thank you, God, for the Florida sunshine and for the spring that comes alive here in February. Thank you for the gift of getting to live in this beautiful city. Thank you for the sun that shined on our skin on the way in, the gentle breeze that makes today beautiful. May we not take these things for granted, and may these simple and free gifts that you offer to us all bless us, calm us, and propel us forward that we may all shine light and ignite change. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Roll call.
Carlson.
Here.
Vieira.
Here.
Maniscalco. Here. Hurtak.
Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Physical quorum.
I
Mr.
will-
Chair,
Yes.
could I just make a,
Councilman Carlson.
yeah, just a couple things real fast. One, Eric, I go to 3 churches regularly, and Erica and Chris have Horizon, which is one of the churches that I go to and I love, and they're great, innovative people who are making great inroads into South Tampa, so thank you. Second, my legislative aide, Dossie, had a baby yesterday morning, so excited for her. And I have a temp, Andrew Ellman, who's right over there, and I just met him and look forward to working with him. So for any constituents watching, I think he'll jump right in, but if we miss a step, please forgive us for the next 3 months. Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to adopt the minutes from the meetings
Second.
of January 26th, January 23rd, and February 2nd. We have a motion made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor? Is there any objection? Motion passes. We already had roll call. Celine, did we have roll call? Yeah. All right, let's go to the approval of the agenda, please. Chief, you with us?
Good morning, Council. John Bennett, Chief of Staff. Good morning to our public and our viewers. Obviously, I'll defer to Council for items 1 and 2.
Yes, we're still going to have that. Councilwoman Hurtak?
No, I'm just
Okay, thank you.
preparing.
Okay, agenda item 3, we'll keep there. I believe someone, Tyler Hudson or one of the other people is going to be here. Let's see. Number 4,
I have something. I would like to move item number 21 from the consent agenda to be talked about during administrative update.
agenda item number 21. We do that. Are you going to have an agenda update, a administrative update for us today, Chief?
I do not, pending a request from Council wanting to talk about the events around the night parade, but other than that, we can accommodate item 21, but it would require a vote as well.
Okay. Yes, I'm going to hope that we're going to give all of our Tampa city employees their due for the great and excellent work that they did for the night parade. Agenda item number 5, we will be hearing that. 7 also. 8, I believe, is Councilwoman Hurtak.
Yes.
Fantastic. Agenda item number 9.
I'm fine. Report is fine. I'll probably comment on it. Yeah, this is a sidewalk that I requested at Liberty Manor, a veterans home, that the administration was kind enough to fund, and that's a great thing for those good folks there. So, but there's no need for a report on that.
Okay, would you like to make your comments now then?
Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Agenda item number 9, we will go ahead and cancel out. Agenda item number 10, Councilman Maniscalco.
Yes, if I could have Mr. Bede available.
Fantastic. I see a note here that Councilman Vieira, you're going to continue item number 11.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, that's my item for a paid internship for people with intellectual disabilities within the city. Administration needs more time, and I'm more than happy to do that, obviously. So how about we do it in the last week or 8 weeks, 2 months. And if you all need more time, let me know, and that's fine.
Do we have a date, please?
Mr. Chairman, if I could just back up to item 10, I believe Mr. Bede is out of the office, so it'll either be Gene Duncan or Brandon Campbell maybe standing in
Yes,
for him.
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
You have, I'm sorry, Councilman Goods, one second, please. You have a motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I have a second? Second. We have a motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Motion passes. Councilman Goods. Then I'll come to you.
Just a footnote, and while we're talking about young people getting an opportunity, it's come to my attention that, the youth program and, that we're trying to establish in East Tampa, that some of the department heads seem to be having pushback. And I'm hoping that is not the issue. That program is designed for everybody, and I know that the solid waste is graciously wants to be involved and a few others, but that program, again, is not for kids picking up trash. And my understanding that from hearing rumors that a lot of the department heads are having pushback about having young people working and being mentored. And I'm hoping that's not the case, and that if that is, I would hope that you would address that in your executive staff meeting, and know that we all need to be good stewards, because our young people are our future, and we need them understanding the workforce of the city of Tampa.
And just to be clear, this is the youth work groups, not internships, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. I'll check on the workforce development with Bren McKenzie and OSEA, but I've heard a little bit of logistical discussions, but I haven't heard anything about
Yeah,
pushback.
if you would get with Ms. McCray and I think Regina, who's helped work with one of those programs, because I think we're getting a little pushback. Ms. Travis, you starting to get up a minute? Were you starting to get up and say something, or?
No, I was trying to.
Okay, I just want to make sure that they understand we all want to be good players for our children, to give opportunity and not having pushback. And I know sometimes with young people, people don't want to deal with kids, but I think that program is going to be very viable to the success of the city. So I'm hoping that
Yeah.
the administrative managers understand the importance of that.
Yep, I'll take a look at it.
Thank you, sir.
Councilwoman Hurtak. Okay, well, agenda item number 12, Councilman Carlson.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 13, Councilwoman Hurtak.
Yes.
Agenda item number 14, Councilwoman Hurtak. Agenda item number 15, Councilman Carlson.
Yes.
Thank you very much. 16, Councilwoman Hurtak. That is going to be continued
Yes.
to April 20th. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
That was on agenda item number 16.
And the date for,
I'm sorry? Okay, I'm coming back here. Agenda item number 15, can I please have a motion to
moved.
continue that till March 2nd, 2023? Motion made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item number 16 has been asked for continuance until April 20th, 2023. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item number 17 has been asked for a continuance to March 16th, 2023. Motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed? I see agenda item 18 has been asked for a continuance till April 20th, 2023. So moved. We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods.
Yes, sir.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes.
I believe we have some folks here to talk about this item.
which item is it?
Item number 18.
Ms. Travis?
Well, I'm sorry. With regard to item 18,
18? Yes.
yes, you have that memorandum, and if the people are here to speak, if they still wish to speak during public
Then
comment,
let's
they
keep it
certainly
open
can,
for
but the
now,
question
then,
is,
and then
it's
we'll have it
council's
during public
pleasure.
comment.
Yep.
You want, so what's council's pleasure on number 18 right now? Just
So
to,
let's keep it open for now,
okay,
but during public comment, the people that are here that we're going to speak about that can speak about it then.
thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll
Agenda
let the
item number-
director know. I'll let the director know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 19 has asked for a continuance to April 20th. We have a motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. I believe we have one addendum, if I'm not mistaken, if somebody would like to move that.
Move it.
Second. That's file number E 2023-8, chapter 27, has asked for continuance until May 18th. Motion was made by Councilman Goods, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed?
So moved.
Second. Motion to approve the agenda by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor? Aye. Is there any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Thank you all. Shelby.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. A quick motion, please, to waive the rules to allow continued use of
Second.
CMT.
We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor? Aye. Is there any opposed?
Thank you.
Motion passes. Okay, agenda item number 1.
And I wanted to thank council for allowing me to do this during a general session because of scheduling issues. Thank you very much. This is a commendation for Mr. Connor Darken, who's here, who has been with the city of Tampa for a few years now as my assistant legislative aide. And Connor is here with his wonderful mother, Terry, his wonderful father, Kevin, his wonderful sister, Colleen, and Chris, his twin brother. Who is a great guy and whatnot. So Connor has been with us for a couple of years now and has done a really, really good job. I had the pleasure of meeting Connor, if you remember, a couple of years ago when I was running for office. I was sitting in the Starbucks over at the Hilton in 2016, and he comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, you're running for office." So then we meet, and over at the new Tampa Starbucks, maybe 2 days later, and his wonderful mother comes with him. And we became friends then. And so I had the great opportunity to hire Connor as my assistant legislative aide about 2 years ago. And Connor has done a wonderful, wonderful job for us on so many issues. He's very passionate a lot about public policy and about civic issues, ranging from issues from transportation to disability access to social justice and equity issues and criminal justice reform and many, many issues. And he has been taken from us, and I say that obviously in a playful way, and I see Carson here, by the, where did she go? With the clerk's office. Oh, there, hey, there you go, sorry about that. By our Hillsborough County clerk's office, where he's gonna be a full-time employee. So we're so happy to see this come forward. And let's thank you, Councilman. Let's give him a hand. And Connor has a real thirst for justice and for public policy about justice, and he comes from a family that pursues public service. I know Colleen, correct me if I'm wrong, Judge Barbara Twine Thomas?
Yes, sir.
You okay? Yep. So she's a staff attorney for Judge Barbara Twine Thomas in our 13th Judicial Circuit. And his wonderful mother used to work with, as I recall, Senator Eugene McCarthy. Thought I forgot that. You helped him write his memoir. Yeah, I know. If you all remember 1968, Clean for Gene ran against President Johnson. I guess it was in the primary. But Minnesota, right? U.S. Minnesota. I think he was Minnesota, as I recall. So we're here to give this commendation to Connor, and I also wanted to mention some folks who are here as well. We have our friends from McDonald's Training Center who I see are here as well for Connor. We have Colonel DJ Reyes and Julie Reyes who are here, and potentially other folks. If I'm missing anyone, please excuse me. And who?
The clerk of court.
Oh, yeah, no, and I meant, yep, the clerk of court. Thank you. So we're here for Connor. So we wanted to give the city council commendation to Mr. Connor Darken, to thank him so much for wearing his heart on his sleeve, for his amazing service to the city of Tampa, and for what you're going to continue to do in public service now with our wonderful clerk of court. So Connor, this bud's for you, buddy. Thank you. Thank you. You want to speak your name?
Thank you, Councilman Vieira and members of City Council. This is a great honor. It was extremely unexpected. Throughout my life, I've been passionate about the workings of government, especially local and state government. I think the smallest governmental bodies can have a huge impact on people's daily lives. Local elected officials have the capacity to improve the lives of all kinds of citizens. For vulnerable people and people with disabilities, local government is clearly crucial. Many people with autism and other disabilities, like myself, often don't know they have a voice, or they don't know anyone cares about their needs, or they don't know where to begin expressing those needs or dealing with them. I'm grateful because not only does the City of Tampa understand my voice matters, but you have allowed me to put my voice to work here in this chamber. Representation matters. I've been able to lend my voice, and I've been given attention by a government that cares for the people who need it most, even if, admittedly, I don't live in the city of Tampa. I am very lucky because I have a large team of supporters, many of whom are here today. I would like to thank my McDonald Training Center friends and coworkers. and my family, especially my twin brother Christopher, who uses his autistic brain to help other people with autism every day at USF. Without all of you and Councilman Vieira, I would not be here today with a full-time job. Thank you all.
So Connor, now we have council members who are here, and I asked your wonderful parents if they wanted to say anything. If y'all want to, you may, but you sure? Okay, great. And Kevin, and correct me if I'm wrong, since I'm name dropping, you also went to law school with Judge Kagan, correct? Or Justice Kagan, excuse me, yep. He's always very jealous of me because I went to Stetson Law School and he went to Harvard, so there you go. So go ahead, counsel.
Councilman Carlson.
Connor, thank you for working with the city and congrats on your position. It was great to have you here, but I know you from the community. Even before you came to work here, you were everywhere in the community, and you're somebody who obviously cares deeply about the community, and you don't often, you're not somebody who's attention seeking. You're out there just doing the hard work in the community, and I hope you will continue to do that. I'm sure you'll continue to do that, and I look forward to partnering with you and supporting you in whatever great things you do. Thank you.
Councilman Maniscalco.
Well, congratulations on this recognition and best of luck to you as you move forward. I've had the pleasure of knowing you for several years when you were here behind the scenes at City Hall, and I've always enjoyed your friendship and your dedication to public service. So we're very lucky that we had some time with you here, but again, best of luck to you. I know you're going to do and continue to do many wonderful things. So
Thank you.
Councilman Hurtak.
Congratulations. What a wonderful story, and thank you for all the work you've done here and all the work you're going to do with the clerk of court. That's a huge leap, and you should be incredibly proud and excited, because we're proud and excited for you. So thank you so much, and keep doing and being the wonderful person you are.
Thank you.
Councilman Goose.
Mr. Vieira, Councilman Vieira, thank you for enlightening the community. You know, you enlightened us in 2019 with your advocacy, and that made me start looking at other minority communities that face these same type of challenges. You know, in Connor's speech, he talked about representation, and it's key for all people to be able to have an opportunity. A full-time job, he's happy. He's elated about that, getting an opportunity to work with others and show his skills that people may not see or know about. So I'm proud for you today, and that's why I talk so much about our young people and giving them opportunities in the city, understanding what we can do and what they can do. So, again, congratulations. I know you're going to do well over there with Cindy Stewart.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you very much. Connor, I've known you for quite a while when you behind the halls here, and you did diligent work, not only for Councilman Vieira, but you was always attuned to what was going on in the chambers. And your diligency in taking one step forward at a time, never about one backward, but one forward, is what got you where you're at. And you are an inspiration for anyone who's seeking to be anywhere, jobs in public service. You certainly epitomize the individual who says, I can do it, not I cannot do it. And with that attitude, failure is someone who falls and doesn't get up. Success is the one who falls and gets up and keeps on trying. And like any one of us here in the office in this political realm, we win, and sometimes we don't lose, we just don't get enough votes. In your case, you have epitomized the future of the Hillsborough County and the City Council by implementing your ideas and your systems that you like to work for government. And that's what it all takes, a desire to never lose, but to continue moving forward. Thank you very much, you and your family, for what you've done and continue to do in Hillsborough County. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Connor, there are people that talk the talk, walk the walk, but you're doing the do. You've been with us, you've worked with us. It's been a pleasure knowing you. It's been a pleasure working with you. And all of us expect nothing but the great things that you're capable of doing over at the county. Connor, why don't you come on up with Councilman Vieira and let's get a picture, okay?
Good job, Chief. Thanks.
All right, agenda item number 2. FDOT is here to give us, the Florida Department of Transportation is here to give us an update.
How are you doing? Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Justin Hall. I'm the Director of Transportation Development at FDOT District 7. And I guess following on a theme this morning of opportunity, I'm here to talk about Onboard Tampa Bay and the workforce development that DOT is working on in partnership with Hillsborough County and the city of Tampa. So with that, I'll get started. So just to give you an idea of the scope of work that we're talking about, FDOT District 7 currently has approximately $6 billion in active construction projects. So, and that's not a typo, that is $6 billion in active construction, and that number continues to grow. Here you can see there's several of the large projects that are highlighted, but there's plenty of other projects that, local projects, sidewalk projects, and other safety enhancements. And the big thing here is this provides direct access to jobs in our community. So this is a problem. Everyone hears this. I don't think we're unique that our industry needs workers. For every one worker that we have that enters our industry, 5 retire. And so when we talk about the economic benefit of what we're proposing with our projects, obviously there's a large workforce that's needed to deliver on this. We've had a lot of conversations and we've had a lot of conversations in the community, and it was funny, the big disconnect we saw was that we weren't connecting with the community. A lot of times our contractors would come in and they bring in people from the outside, and that's a paradigm that we're trying to shift. So this is what we heard from our contractors. We heard that they just need boots on the ground. The prerequisites actually are fairly low. You see here, there's pass a drug test, be on time, work hard, and come back tomorrow. There's a key thing that's not here, and this is something that we hear a lot about from the community, is about prior record or other issues, and you see that that's not a prerequisite. So that's something that we're really trying to spread as we have conversation, is the prerequisites are fairly low to enter this industry, but with high starting wages and high opportunities for growth. We just had a meeting the other day, one of our contractors, and actually they're working on I-275 there in Tampa, and they've hired several people from the community that have just come up to their office and said, hey, we're interested in a job. And one of the gentlemen that they hired actually just got promoted. So it just shows you that just that fast that you can enter into the industry and begin to get promoted. So, and along with that, we need good quality subcontractors. So businesses in the community are looking for opportunities to work with the DOT. We're really trying to open the door and make it easier. So where opportunity meets need, I don't think I'm telling you guys anything. This is actually, we actually agree with the city of Tampa on the distressed and at-risk communities. And you can see here we have several highlighted, and what you'll see is if I had a map overlay to show where the projects were, and in conjunction with this, a lot of the areas where we're working align with these communities. So what is Onboard Tampa Bay? What is this new brand? Is it just a fancy slogan, or is it actually something real? So what we're trying to do here is build a large and continuous pipeline of local labor. And it's multifaceted. It's all through community engagement. There's a lot of local partners that have helped us out, really, honestly, more than I can name in the time that I have here. And we're also partnering with the city and the county, who've been a really big help. And so I'm very grateful to you and to your staff for that. So first step, we have a program website. And our job there is to connect the dots. So we have job seekers, contractors, and community partners, and bringing them everybody together, creating a really easy point of entry to register, sign up for jobs, and get real-time updates and notifications. Not only is this a tool for the job seeker, but it's for the contractors. A lot of our contractors utilize nationwide recruiting strategies, so this is an opportunity to be very local. The second step is the Job Fair and Business Expo, which is coming up on the 21st at Julian B. Lane Riverfront Center. This is a combined effort of us, the city, and the county. We've had over 20 contractors sign up. We've had community partners, more than I can name, have signed up, and we've had hundreds of interested job seekers that have signed up. And with that, I'll answer any questions and leave you with a safety minute. So we say drive time is you time, so take it easy. Don't get stressed out behind the wheel, and everyone will drive safer and get home tomorrow if we do so. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
I would love to know the types of jobs. Do you have a few examples that you could share of the actual jobs that are available?
Yeah, so it's really wide ranging. Everything from entry level labor all the way to skilled trades, welders, wood and form work, concrete finishing, electrical work. I mean, you name it. And at the job fair, we're gonna show several career paths and discuss where you can go in your career based on where you are now and entering the industry.
As a follow-up to that, in the city of Tampa, we have an apprenticeship ordinance that I know technically you are not required to use, but do you do apprenticeships for, I mean, all of these are jobs that could lead to journeyman positions. What kinds of things do you do to help these employees?
So there's several things. So some DOT does, some we work with community partners on, and then there's also what the contractor does. So the contractors internally have apprenticeship programs. A lot of the programs, they offer entry level, they get them in and they develop them. We've been working with some of our community partners on connecting the employees with the local community resources, with the community colleges. HCC has been really involved in this. So there's a lot of factors, and it really depends on what discipline that they're in. But we do connect them with apprenticeship programs. Our welders, electricians, and all that a lot of times are members of the local union. So we're not unique in that manner.
Well, I just want you to know that there are some union representatives behind you today. If they want to wave and just make sure you know them, so that if you might want to talk to them about ways to partner, because that's what they're trying to do too. So not reinventing the wheel, and we would really appreciate you working with them to make sure. It's great to hear that people are coming up to job sites. We just want to make sure that these jobs for these folks are something that a career they can take with them, like you said. But let's just make sure that it's not just for this particular job. Also, if you wouldn't mind hanging around if you have a little bit of time.
I can stick around for a little bit.
Item number 8, we have a couple of questions. I know you might not be able to answer it, but I would just love some input if you don't mind.
I will stick around.
I really do appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And if we have to maybe move it up, I forgot that FDOT was here today. So.
Any other comments or questions?
Chairman, just if we're going to stick around for 8, might as well move to put 8.
Then
on.
may I have a motion, please? We have a motion to move 8 to
right after.
right after administrative
Yes,
update
yes.
and/or right before 21, correct?
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you very much. We have a motion to move agenda item 8 up by Councilwoman Hurtak, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objection? Motion passes.
Okay.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3.
We continued it.
To May 8th, that's correct. Thank you.
I'm sorry,
May 18th?
was that a motion? You made that motion earlier. Oh, item number 3, that's right.
At this time, we will be taking public comments? Anyone wishing to make public comment at this time, would you please form a line on my left, your right? And again, I believe that we are also going to be taking comments for those who were wishing to speak to, which agenda item was it? Thank you, to agenda item number 18. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Council. My name is Brian Nathan. I'm with the IBEW Local 915 and the Central Labor Council. I just wanted to speak about the report that DPR was supposed to give today that got pushed back. We understand the Hannah Avenue project is more or less done as far as the apprenticeship ordinance is concerned. However, going forward, we would like to see a bit more engagement and oversight, specifically about who the apprenticeship is being sponsored by, who the instructors are. Is it an Florida Department of Education approved apprenticeship? Is it U.S. Department of Labor approved apprenticeship? We were playing kind of catch up the entire time, and we would just like to see more oversight, more engagement, and make sure that this is done right and thoroughly the next time. So we're not coming back here every 2 weeks to talk about this. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman?
If I may, I think you recall that Councilman Vieira and I were both making sure that these were Florida.
Yes.
Florida, not national, not South Carolina, not Georgia, but these were all Florida.
We appreciate that. The way the ordinance is written, however, it both stipulates Florida and U.S. Department of Labor, so that's something maybe we could address in the future, amend the ordinance if at all possible. We have a couple of ideas of ways to tighten it up, maybe avoid some of the roadblocks we hit this time.
All right. I just wanted to let you and all union members know that there's a couple people up where, that this council is working very hard for you. Councilman Goods.
Just a side note, when I had my staff report, I did speak to Ms. Kalina in reference to, she said she was kind of having a little tag with Cheryl at the union, but I did tell her she needed to go ahead and set up a meeting with all the players involved to address the issues before the report comes back. So she told me she would do that, so she's going to set up a meeting with those who need to be at the table so she can address the concerns.
Then I'll follow up with Cheryl about that.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
Yeah, because I spoke with Cheryl and she said, I thought she had a meeting yesterday, but maybe not.
If she did, she didn't communicate that to me.
Okay, no problem. But yes, we absolutely would love those ideas. As we create laws and ordinances, it's always important to go back, see what's working, what isn't working, and I really appreciate you all bringing this to our attention so that we make sure that we're constantly, that we can update it for future projects.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Councilman-
Did you want to do it? You sure?
Councilman Vieira.
I believe that when we passed this, I had made a motion for this to come back to us like in 18 months or so to see things like that on both sides.
Okay.
I think I did, so I can follow up on that when we passed it maybe 2 years ago or so.
All right.
Yeah, so to see that, but yeah, I mean, but clearly anybody who is subject to the ordinance needs to comply with it 110%, and we need to make sure of that. But that may be coming back to us. I'll can look at that, or whoever wants to is fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sir? Sir?
No, he doesn't have to come back, but based on what he said, it looked like you were going to make a motion, Mr. Chair, but since you all
I was going to wait for the report and then state very hardly that these should be state certified, and if we need to change the ordinance, change the ordinance.
Do you want, what I was going to say is I would support a motion if you want to make it to bring it back with any suggested tweaks.
Well, it is,
If I may.
Councilman Vieira.
I worked on this ordinance for like 9 months with a lot of people in the room. Before we begin to open it up, I think that we should have some meetings with staff, et cetera, for unintended consequences. And I say that respectfully. This ordinance took probably 9 months of negotiations where one side ultimately said, look, we don't support it, and we went forward, et cetera. But before we open it up, let's have some, or begin to discuss opening up, because when we open something up, who knows what's going to happen to it, right? So let's first identify if there is a problem, and if there is, by golly, let's do it. But I'd like to speak to some of the people in this room just before, in my opinion, before we go there. How long has this ordinance been on the books for? In effect, 6 months? So, yeah, I mean, it's a little premature, I think. If there is an issue, I would lead the way or support, or support that motion, et cetera. But I just think a little premature, in my opinion, just mine.
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, I don't know what I said is I would support a motion, if you want to make it, Mr. Chair, to have folks look at it and make suggestions, not to, to me, that process would include talking to everybody. So we're not prescribing any particular solution right now, but if there's feedback from different parts of the community that think we should modify it, we should have some process to hear that and then bring it back.
Well, I'm not going to make the motion. I would, again, rather hear the report, and as Councilman Vieira says, let's listen, let's make dialogue, let's talk behind the scenes with union members and with staff, and after the report, if something needs to be done, then I'll be more than happy to make a motion, or Councilman Vieira, or whomever. But, dialogue will solve things. If not, we can figure out how to solve it. Councilman Goods.
Well, that's my point. That's why I asked Adrian to make sure she actually have a sit-down meeting versus the telephone tag that's happened so far, and sit down with the players at the table so we can do that what you're discussing right now. And she had promised me she would do that.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
Because my understanding is we're actually not going to hear this today. She asked it to be continued.
Continued, yes.
So yes, I'm 100% for having that conversation, but also not forgetting it. So that's the bigger problem.
Anyone else?
We're not going to forget it, that's all I'm going to
No,
say.
no. Yes.
Hi, good morning. My name is Chase Harrison, and I brought a document I put on the projector. I'm not sure who can show that. Okay. Last week, I attended a community meeting, and there were several members of this board there. During the meeting, the conversation turned to how do we keep people in their homes in the time that developers are moving in and giving people and offering payments to people that they've never seen before. During the process of the conversation, one council person had mentioned that there's a program called Owner Occupied Rehabilitation Program. I've got the phone number that no one knew about. No one in the crowd had ever heard of this in that area of town, apparently. So I'm here today to get on record the number that no one in the audience that day had heard of. We couldn't find anyone. So the number is 813-274-7940. So if someone's looking to help the city, get the city to help them rehab their home for heating, air conditioning, roof issues, siding, there is a program for that. It's just the word has had a problem getting out. I had mentioned maybe we could put that information into a water bill. The council member that was there said they tried to do that, but they were told they couldn't do that. So I think something as simple as this, if the projector here has the number on it, but I don't know how to turn it on.
Can you slide that piece of paper up just a little so everything can be seen? Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. All right, so this is the number, 247-7940. So now this is a simple way to get the information out, let people know this program exists. And we can do things in the future, even when city council is discussing things, maybe a crawler like the news. I know we have closed caption going on, but there are ways to get the information out. It's one of those, people don't know what they don't know. And if we truly are trying to help people stay in their houses, programs like this, the information needs to be out there. And something as simple as what I've done here, I think it's now on record. If it's on YouTube forever and it's archived. With that, I'll yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, council members. James Shaw, I'm from West Tampa, speaking on agenda item 14. In 2017, Officer Brian Kremler ran a man over with a squad car and killed him. There's a lawsuit currently pending before the Honorable Mary Scriven, who recently denied his motion for qualified immunity, finding that there was record evidence that he did it on purpose. You know who's defending the city in that lawsuit? The city attorney's office. As you all know, in the summer of last year, the city settled a lawsuit brought by the estate of Arthur Green Jr. for his death in custody by Tampa Police Department. You know who defended the city in that lawsuit? The city attorney's office. Now, their job, the city attorney's mission, is to defend the city from liability. There's nothing wrong with that. I've defended a few defendants from liability myself. Somebody's got to do it. But The CRB's mission is different. The CRB's mission is to get to the truth and to assure the public that the outcome of an internal affairs investigation was just, and that mission is counter to the mission of protecting the city from liability. How can they gather information, for example, about Brian Kremler's running over a man with the car, and gather that information that could then be used against the city in pending litigation? The same attorney's office cannot do both things. Those are mutually incompatible missions. It's a conflict of interest. They need to have an independent attorney. I looked at the language that was prepared by the city attorney's office for the ordinance that would give the CRB an independent attorney. First off, it says that I sent you an email earlier detailing efforts to mislead the CRB by attorneys about what the independent attorney was even for. Attorneys showed up at a meeting in June and just snowed them and convinced them it was something that it wasn't. And it's not their function to decide structural things like that. It's their function to investigate the facts of an incident, not to make policy decisions. But the ordinance as drafted that was provided to you by the city's attorney's office, it provides that the CRB doesn't even get the independent attorney unless a majority of the whole CRB, not a majority of a quorum, but a majority of the whole CRB requests it. And we've seen that there's been efforts to mislead them as to what that's even about. So they'd have to get over that new hurdle that's being created. And then after that, it positions the city attorney to solicit the applications, to screen out the ones that in the city attorney's judgment are not qualified, to consult the CRB as to which one they want, but the city attorney still makes the final decision. The attorney can't do anything without the city attorney's okay, but they're independent. It's not independent. If you want to have an independent counsel, you need to have an independent counsel. So I ask you to support the motion to give the CRB an independent attorney, but make sure that it's truly independent. You need to use different language than the language that was provided to you. I have to go to work, but I will be watching. The voters are watching. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Connie Burton. I would just like to say that I am in full support of all comments made by Mr. Shaw. But what moved me this morning was the presentation of that young man. And I just thought, so welcoming, so supported by even his next venture in life. And for the last 20-some plus years that I've been coming down here, I have been trying to articulate that same thought, that if just given an opportunity, if young people in our community was given an opportunity, those that are being described as the worst, we would see a complete turnaround. We have tremendous amount of job fairs, but there are hurdles that keep people that's already in the beginning of their adulthood that find it even difficult to even jump into some of those processes, because you know what, you still got to pay rent, you still got to just maintain a standard of life that many of these young black men have been crippled out of. And so I want to say that about the young man this morning, but I want to say this to you and to the city administration, and it's based on a quote by a man that I respect in the heart of black history. It says, "I can't believe what you say because I see what you do." For the number of years that we have talked about how do we get affordable housing in our community, from 2020, only less than 30 people in East Tampa have been able to make those purchases. It don't matter how much a down payment assistance you bring. Developers know now it is out of the reach of working class people. We can't get there. We have asked for similar programs to help our young people have mentors, resistance. We don't want our children just picking up paper. We want them to be able to see a brighter future for themselves. I remember coming down here, and it was a North American woman, white woman, beautiful, received, I believe her name was Margaret Beasy, would step to this podium, and just the sound of her voice would garnish the attention of all of the council people, and immediately things were being done. I don't know if we have to scream, holler, cuss, shout, or what, but just hiring black folks in city department heads do not solve the problem of the Black community. We need to see substantial changes. We need to see a real dedication to the resolution that you signed in 2020, that if you understood the real disparities of what slavery and the continual harm that you didn't do, but it was done to Black people, we will have a regressive and a progressive move toward making things better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Connie, well said.
Hello, my name is David Jones. I'm speaking on agenda item 14, given the CRB Independent Counsel. In favor of that item with some edits. I also read the memo put forth by the city attorney, and parts of it didn't read like what was originally being proposed with the motion on the 16th of January. I guess some of the bigger parts that were kind of causes of concern for me was 6D on the city attorney's ability to select or like pre-screen who was available for counsel. Like James Shaw said earlier, we're currently seeing that the city attorney's office is defending the police in a case of police brutality from 2017 that resulted in a man's death, and I'm not understanding how that can go like without any type of there's some type of bias there. The second part that causes issues is 6H involving the removal of an attorney. Where the CRB needs a majority vote, which I completely agree with, but needing the council to also give a majority vote on that. If we want to make it independent, they have to be able to make the decisions on their own, both for like now and the future of the CRB, whatever that may be. Yeah, so I do support the motion. I just think it needs some edits to make it independent. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Council. My name is Taylor Cook. I live in North Tampa, and I'm also speaking on Independent Council. I agree with what David just said. I think if we want to make Independent Council, it needs to be independent. And I think however that was written and those points were written, they knew exactly what they were doing when they wrote them. I also would like to say, because I'm a member of Tampa Bay Community Action Committee, we've met with mostly all of you, and we've heard some different arguments that just don't really make any sense, like how, like the cost, or the argument that if you're going through the CRB, they can request an independent attorney at any time. If they can do that, why not just have it independent all the time, you know? And why put it at the request of the people who are appointed by the mayor and are appointed by you all? Why would they request independent counsel? We want independent counsel all the time, not just at a request. And we want independent counsel because we want more transparency with the police. You hear us talking about independent counsel and more transparency and accountability for the police every other week. We've said nameless cases of police crimes in Tampa and by TPD, and I think those crimes warrant more accountability in Tampa. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Laith Abdelhader. I'm a member of Tampa Bay Community Action Committee, live in Town and Country. I'm here to speak in favor of the independent counsel for the CRB. You know, we know the history of TPD here in Tampa, you know, having, you know, case after case of brutality and crimes that they commit against people with going completely unchecked. And the CRB should have the power to at least investigate and publicize and increase transparency. But we can't get that if, you know, they have a conflict of interest. They can't, you know, carry out their job completely without an independent attorney. And so, once again, urge you to vote in favor of this ordinance for the independent counsel for the CRB. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Council. Robin Lockett. I listen to everyone that comes up. You know what their concerns are. Everybody's explaining that we need this, that there's a need for it, right? Conflict of interest. Even when I was a legal assistant for regional counsel, public defender's office, there was a conflict of interest. Public defender couldn't represent everyone, so they sent people to regional counsel. Conflict of interest. 1 + 1 always equals 2. Even in the new way that they teach kids hypothetically how to figure out how to do it, it always equals 2, right? It baffles me each and every time. It really does. I always feel like it's the okie doke. I always feel like it's a Jedi mind trick. Things are not how it seems. If the people are telling you this is what they want, this is what they want, right? And rehashing this over and over again still doesn't make sense to me. But the cause of it, in my mind, is the changing of your votes. You're not standing tall and standing firm when you make a decision. The idea that people are able to come and change your vote when the people have come and spoken to you still baffles me. And I've always said that. I've had it happen to me. Unanimous votes, and then you waffle, and then you change your vote with no explanation to the people that you agreed that you were going to support it. So it makes no sense. We need an independent counsel. 1 + 1 always equals 2. We need an independent counsel. And just stand by what you are saying, right? Stand by what you're saying. Stand by what the people want, because everybody's up for election. Every last one of you. Don't be on the election trail, the campaign trail, saying one thing and coming and voting a totally different way like you have been. So we need an independent counsel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mentes not Tampa, Florida. Bob Marley said it, get up, stand up. Marcus Garvey said it, Malcolm X said it, Martin Luther King tried to say it, Martin Delaney said it, other people said it, Kwame Nkrumah said it, some of those names y'all never heard of. Fred Hampton said it, Huey Newton said it, Queen Mother Moore said it. We African people, we have to stop begging. That's all these people coming out here doing, week after week, begging y'all, begging white folks. Begging, that have to stop. We have to stand up, get up, stand up for our rights. You got to beg, y'all. We ain't need no damn police board. They don't need it. They don't need no review board. They don't need no citizen review board. They don't even need it. They don't even need no independent attorney. They need a conflict of interest attorney. What you think capitalism's gonna do? Give you an attorney to represent your interests? No, they're gonna represent their interests. Zelnick and all the other people, they're gonna represent their interests. So black people, stand up like human beings and stop begging. Go on 22nd and Martin Luther King and see how I'm living as an example for African people. And I ain't never had to beg white folks for nothing. Been beaten by the stinking police officers, stinking police department, been choked out by them, ran over by them, all this other kind of stuff, still standing up strong, okay? So begging, white people have reduced all Africans to begging, or most Africans to beggars. If you come into contact with 100 Africans, 99.9% of them will be beggars. In essence, you will have to meet 1,000 Africans before you'll be able to come into contact with one genuine, non-begging African. White people have removed us so far away from reality that we really believe that our civilization began on the cotton plantation. We're in broad daylight begging for speed bumps, begging for roundabouts, begging for parks and recreation centers, begging for integration, begging. Now we're begging for an attorney and a police citizen review board. I don't care if the city gave the black people, all the city of Tampa, all the black people, they wouldn't know what to do with it. We wouldn't know what to do with it. We're not educated enough. We're not educated enough. They're kicking our children out of school. They've been kicking us out of school. Expulsions rate and suspensions rate way up there. We won't know what to do with it. Okay, the people feel the police violence if the whole police force was black, we'll still feel the police violence. You've seen what just happened in Tennessee or in Kentucky and in North Carolina, okay? What we have to do as African people is stand up and resist tyranny, stand up and resist capitalism. We have to demand our reparations that's owed for us. We have to demand 26% of this city's population. We're 26% of this population. We need 26% of this budget. We don't need these little handout programs. Black people have to stand up and have pride in what we do, and stop letting these white folks trick us and fool us every single day and end up with crumbs and nothing.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have some documents that I wish to have each of you, and I don't know how to, oh, thank you.
Steve, we all know who you are, but for the record, can you please give us your name?
Oh, thank you. Yes, sir. Y'all have to excuse me, I'm old, so I move slow. Good morning, my name is Dee Wilkins, and I am the Senior Editor and Managing Officer of Impact, Christian Business and Professional Magazine. I am here today to speak in regards to if you read the letter, it gives you the information basically. But I'm here because I'm a little confused, dismayed, whatever. In regards to on the back, you'll see a copy of a flyer that I had created for a wonderful event that we had last night at the Fair Oaks. Well, it was held at Middleton High School, and it was in regards to the Fair Oaks, and you know, they're putting together a senior center and one for the youth. And so we wanted to let the people know, that's what I do, let the people know about the event. And I was so excited that I created this, this flyer, and the company that hired me, they did not see it. Somehow it seems as though I did tag quite a few of you, I believe, when I did the flyer, but it seems to have caused some controversy. And when something causes controversy against me and what I do, I have to come and stand up. You're holding up something, Mr. Carlson?
I was trying to read it.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know, I have my glasses on, so I can't see. Yes, sir. At any rate, I wanted to explain that the Skanska and the KVJ Inc. PR, they did not know that I had sent this particular flyer. When you get to be my age and you're trying to deal with technology that comes from the future, and I'm trying to catch up with it, I was trying to send it, but instead I was so excited, I posted it, and all of my friends and whatever contacts, they got it. And I didn't think that it was a bad thing, because if you had seen the show of individuals who were there last night, we had close to 300 people. I'm sorry? Oh, I thought someone said no. If my numbers are wrong, somebody tell me. But at any rate, I just wanted to clear up the fact that Impact did not do anything and would never do anything to cause any type of negativity to a project that was being worked on so hard, especially where I grew up in Fair Oaks, worked for Dave Barksdale as a, you know, type of recreation person. And so I just was very upset that this occurred and that it affected any of you.
Ms. D, if you
Yes, sir.
need 30 seconds more, I'll let you finish. 30 seconds more.
I just wanted to say that they have done such an awesome job trying to bring the community together. We always say that we don't know what's going on, and that's because we don't come out to find out what's going on. And I think that Skanska and the company, I'm so nervous, I'm sorry. Plus I have asthma, so, oh Lord. But the company was so, you know, they did so much. They had free dinner. They did all that they could do to bring the public out. And that's what my flyer was saying. We have another one coming on Saturday. So we're trying to reach the youth, because that's what it is, as well as the seniors. So if I, you know, upset anybody, because I'm very hurt, I really am. I don't want my name that I have worked so hard for and my company to be thought of in a negative way. And I certainly don't want Skanska and the Kim Jackson firm affected either.
Ms. D, we all know you're a good woman. Councilman Maniscalco?
I don't understand what the controversy is. It was a very well-attended event. I was
Yes,
there.
Yes.
I don't understand. I don't know who said what, but you know, the room was packed. There was
It
food.
was.
There were, you know, people answering questions, people asking questions, the microphone being passed around.
Yes.
I don't think you've done anything wrong, again. And the cupcakes were awesome.
Awesome.
Wait, you ate
That's
sugar?
Alvin Killer Cupcakes.
All right.
And we want to give a
But-
shout out to the Bronson for their awesome food. And we had scrub down, somebody clean up that made sure that everything was sanitized. And of course, Skanska and Kim Jackson's PR firm. So I did my part. I helped to fill that room. I feel very, very good about that. And all of you know me, so your campaign better get us going if y'all want me behind y'all too.
Ms. D, hang on one second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Finished?
I don't know the
Councilman Good.
protocol.
Ms. D, you didn't do anything wrong. You know, I received several calls about the event last night, and I'll talk to staff about that later, what some of the concerns were from some of the community members, and I'll deal with those privately. But you've done nothing wrong. I think what we didn't do as a city, we didn't market or let the company Skanska know what our intent is. In the budget for this project is not called Fair Oaks. The budget for this project is East Tampa Regional Complex. Fair Oaks is nowhere in the budget.
No.
And that complex is designed for the whole community of East Tampa, not one community. And that's why we have it as East Tampa, so all communities will be able to partake in the amenities and things that are gonna go on at that park. So no one had a silo. And that's why I think some of the confusion with some of the other neighborhood associations have come up about why we keep saying that. But I think staff and Ms. Travis and Chief Ben and some others are now addressing, and Ms. Wynn, who's the portfolio director of that department, are now addressing that to get the right marketing out. And I think they met with the company Skanska, so I think you'll see a different type of marketing strategy go out, so everyone will come together, gel together, and we'll have a great project, and we'll have that dirt lift up, because for me, it's not about a name right now, it's about I want the dirt dug up so we can actually build the project. All right? Thank
And I
you, Ms. D.
appreciate that.
Thank you, Ms. D.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Cross?
I just wanted to say, I saw some chatter. I didn't read all of it, but I looked at this invitation online. I thought it was very well designed. If you design it, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Whatever it was, I appreciate you coming here. I didn't understand what people didn't like about it. Maybe my colleague just explained it, but anyway, thank you for coming here and protecting your good name and your colleagues. Keep up the good job on the beautiful design and getting people out to events like that. Thank you.
Ms. D, I apologize. I wanted to be there last night, but Miss Paula was up for an award last night, so I wanted to be with her, and I hope you understand.
I do, I really do. And if I could just say, in response to Councilman Goods, the reason that I was so, because we're trying to reach the youth, and Fair Oaks is where it's all started, and then there's the seniors. So I mistakenly may have, trying to merge and mesh, added that. But I want to make sure that no one that it was all me. It was not the Skanska and the other, the Kimberly Jackson PR firm. They hired me to do a job. I did the best job that I thought. My heart is in that community because, as I said, I graduated from Middleton, worked for Dave Barksdale at Fair Oaks, and I just wanted to see it grow. And when I looked and saw all those people, as you indicated last night, I know that we're on the right track. And I appreciate all of your time and patience with me. I'm going on campaign.
Well, let me just say this. I'm just quietly listening to everything you said and what's been said by various council members. Let's say that there was something wrong. It turned out right because 300 people showed up. You can have an audience somewhere and no one shows up.
That's true.
But in this case, the community reacted to what they thought was something as an error. There's a difference between an error and a mistake. An error is something you make when you're trying. A mistake is something that you do when you already know it's going to be wrong. And you didn't know it was going to be wrong. That was an error, not a mistake.
Yes, sir.
And so you had 300 people there.
Maybe more.
You can have a fish fry and the fish don't even show up. And you made an error and 300 people showed up. So congratulations to you for having 300 people show up and do the right thing for the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Ms. D, people can talk all they want to, but they'll never tarnish your good name.
I pray not. Thank you, gentlemen. Psalm 91. Y'all know what I mean.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
You did good.
Is there any other comments from members of the chamber? We will now go to Ms. Stephanie Pointer. Ms. Pointer.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Good morning, folks. My name's Stephanie Pointer. I want to point out that many of you are running on the police and safety platform for council. So I just want to remind folks of that. In the last year, 26 firms were approved by council for up to $100,000 worth of legal fees. We spent on this agenda, item number 53, I think it is, $100,000 on attorneys for Fludra process. We spent $100,000 investigating Councilman Goose for something he was acquitted of. People keep forgetting that. He was acquitted of those things that he was investigated on by a judge. Another $25,000 to investigate Councilman Dingfelder after he left office, which I personally think was a waste of money for both items. But here we are, just because the CRB can hire legal counsel doesn't mean that they necessarily will, but they should be given the opportunity. I personally am offended that the mayor thought it was okay to shut that down with a veto. I think the citizens of Tampa should have been able to vote on this. This shouldn't be up to you guys to make the choice. There are just some things like that. And the citizens of Tampa deserve to vote on this. Now it's back in your court because the mayor didn't want it. And again, she has put in her personal information without showing up. Again, I would like for her to woman up and walk over and address city council when she has a problem with something they've done, rather than sending folks to do her bidding for her. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Ms. Cawthorn? She is not logged on. Again, is there anyone else in council that wishes to make public comment? Seeing none. Chief?
Good morning again, council and public. John Bennett, Chief of Staff. Unless you want me to make a few comments about the Gasparilla Night Parade, we can move right into item 21.
I think that our city employees need the recognition, if I have no problem from council members. Thank you.
I think the most interesting part of Saturday was when my phone started reading about the weather. We all saw the weather pattern coming in, and we had to make some decisions for the parade goers, the spectators, and of course staff. in the throes of, and we all know we get rain and lightning, but, you know, I've evacuated open-air events many times, and, you know, trying to find shelter in place with the businesses and the way it's configured with Bike Rack required some last-minute calls with staff and the promoters. And it was a good conversation. It led to an iterative process to try and go forward as much as possible, knowing that there may be some real-time cancellation or at least pausing, no different than when I coach Little League or coach football. And you have to stop everything and start it again, or at least make sure the accessibility is in place to remove yourself from the event. So during the calls this week, it came up that we should just mention the appreciation for the public's patience, the communication, and all of staff and everybody coming together, working as a community to make sure the event went on as safe as possible under the conditions they were. So again, council, thanks for your continued support in progressing our service together. And with that, I'll hand it over to Major Richard Mills, who oversees the Canine unit for item 21. And I'll stage this photo up here for Councilwoman Hurtak's request.
And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because.
Can I make just one statement?
Sure.
Please and thank you, Chief. Again, I send kudos out to all our city staff for the Gasparilla Parade. As you said, it was touch and go for about 2 hours there. And I even had some police on bicyclists come up and say, Joe, one crack of thunder, one crack of lightning gets called off. But I was very, very impressed by mobility, solid waste, and stormwater for being able to clean up 7th Avenue within 4 hours and reopen it up. TPD and fire rescue were also excellent at making sure the crowd was taken care of, and during the process of the cleanup, everything went smoothly. So kudos to the City of Tampa family that made sure this parade went off very, very well. Thank you. Councilwoman Hurtak.
Thank you. I received a request to pull this item today because it's always nice to talk about the retirement of all of our workers, and this is a very special worker. This is Pyro, one of our furry finest, I like to say, who's retiring. I have to say, I hate the word disposition that's put in here. It doesn't sound very positive, but I know he's going off to a wonderful retirement, and I was looking forward to hearing about it.
Okay. Good morning, Council, Mr. Chairman, and the public. As Chief of Staff Bennett said, my name is Rich Mills. I'm a major over the Special Operations Division, which oversees the Canine unit. Canine Pyro is a seven-year-old Belgian Malinois. He's and is in fact formerly retired from his service with the Tampa Police Department's Canine unit. He was in fact a patrol and explosive ordnance detection dog, so he was a dual-purpose dog, very valuable to us and as well as the community. Since Canine Pyro came to the Tampa Police Department, his handler and partner has been Master Patrol Officer Timothy Bergman. Together they worked the evening shift citywide and successfully apprehended numerous felony suspects. They were also responsible for conducting numerous explosive sweeps at Raymond James Stadium, Amalie Arena, Steinbrenner Field, Tropicana Field, and other city venues such as the Gasparilla parades. They are responsible for sweeping all the floats that come in and then sweeping the routes during the run to make sure there's nothing explosive on the route, so keeping our community safe again. Over the years, Canine Pyro and MPO Bergman have developed a special bond, and it is traditional at the Tampa Police Department that when a canine does retire, his handler has the option of adopting them. So MPO Bergman has formally requested that the City of Tampa donate Canine Pyro to him for adoption, so Pyro can enjoy retire life with his partner. They developed, like I said, they've developed a very, very strong relationship, as you can see in the photograph, and they want to continue that relationship in his retirement.
All I ask is that the photo be shown to the public so everyone can see it.
Second.
Yeah.
And we'll also be posting this on social media once he formally retires.
Thank you.
Councilman Vieira.
Thank you. And you know, one thing for Councilwoman Hurtak that you may want to do is, maybe like a year and a half ago, I gave what I think may have been the first city council commendation to an animal, to a dog. And you may want to do that. It was to a wonderful dog by the name of Shadow, who's owned by Tim Reed, who's a Marine, an Afghanistan war veteran who lost a dog or lost a leg in Afghanistan, and then he adopted Shadow, who was a bomb-sniffing dog in Afghanistan who saved American Marine lives in Afghanistan. And on Service Dog Day at Fire Station 23, I gave Shadow a commendation. So just as an idea, if you want, I think it's cool. I think it's great, just as an idea.
Well,
Councilwoman Hurtak.
I'm a huge animal lover, and we have been fostering beagles for many years. We're on number 21 right now. Her name is Jelly, and she's very special. But animals have a special place in my heart, especially these dogs who do the work. So just wanted to say thank you to him and his handler for all the work, and that he should be lauded just like everyone else when they retire.
Any comments? Councilman Vieira, this is your committee. Do you want to wait until consent agenda, or do you want to move it now?
I'll move it now. Why not?
Okay.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objection? Motion passes.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Agenda item number 5. We moved 8 up. My apologies again. File number CM 2379470.
Good morning, City Council. Brad Baird, Deputy Administrator of Infrastructure. To talk about item 8, we just moved that up, right? So this is an update on the Southeast Seminole Heights flooding relief project. We provided an update a month ago, and Councilwoman Hurtak asked us to come back and provide an update. Before, I have with me Jeff Nelson, who is president of Nelson Construction, to give a detailed update. But before I turn it over to Jeff, I do want to announce we have a community meeting next Wednesday night at starting promptly at 6 p.m. and it is at A.W. Windhorst Lodge number 185, located at 5011 North Nebraska Avenue. And so we invite the community to come out and ask questions about the project, and we'll all be there to answer those questions. So thank you very much. I want to get that on the record. And with that, I will turn it over to Jeff to provide a detailed update. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you for bumping us up on the agenda. I really appreciate that, especially after last month's where we were here all day. So just to bring everybody up to speed, I thought I'd bring a map of this job so you guys could follow where we're talking. Some people haven't been out there. So just to, in general speaking, I'm going to start in the southwest quadrant of the project using Hillsborough and I-275 as kind of our crosshairs. And we started at the river coming out, so from Riverside Park, from here, we got our revised design. We're going to be grading. Our expectation is to be done with the grading in that area by mid-March and wrapped up and out with everything except for the handrail, which has been ordered, and we're waiting on a delivery date for that. On Crest, we had the first lift of asphalt paved. We found a few more areas where the sanitary, when we ran a video down the sanitary sewer, we found a couple more areas that had settled due to the unsuitable material. We were taking those out yesterday. We got to go back and patch that first lift of asphalt. We expect to be done with that by the 1st of March. And in the northwest corner at Highland, we're waiting on a revised structure. When we put the original design structure in, they looked at the way the ADA handicap tied in with the existing surroundings and decided we didn't want to do that. So we went back to the drawing board, came up with a new plan. We've ordered that structure, and as soon as that gets here, we'll put that in and be done completely. On Florida Avenue, we have submitted a revised design to the DOT about the sidewalks and the inlets and how to make the drainage work in the scooters and the rollerbladers and the walkers to be able to get past there. The ball is in their court at this point. Hopefully we'll hear back from them, can make some final adjustments and wrap that up and be done there. On Frierson, the storm pipe is in. We are now installing the water line, getting everything tied and getting the houses connected. And we expect to be done with the curb and the first lift of asphalt by the end of April. On Central, the northbound lanes are complete with the exception of the Caracas area where we've got some pipe repairs to make. The southbound lanes, we should have the first lift of asphalt and the permeable pavers on that road by March 15th. So we're moving along on that. On Caracas itself, we're still on target to make those pipe repairs and be done with those pipe repairs by mid-April, have the road built back by early May, which for this entire quadrant means that our plan is to bring in the asphalt pavers in May and pave that entire job and be done in May. Now, going back and looking at our original schedule that we gave the city before we turned the first shovel of dirt, that showed that we're supposed to be out of there by mid-July. So technically, in spite of the supply chain issues and in spite of the unsuitable materials and in spite of some vandalism on our stuff, we had put enough extra crews on there that because we're trying to get out of there 6 months early, we're still 2 months ahead of schedule in that quadrant alone. Any questions about the south? Yes, ma'am.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
Yes, this is the area that most,
Sure.
most of the work is going on right now. So what I did before this was just reach out to the community, and I want to say thank you because I have not gotten as much email, phone calls, text messages as I have in the past. So that shows me that things are smoothing on. I had an email from a constituent who was just completely angry that we were supposed to have the pavement done by August on Crest, and that hasn't happened. And I know the reasoning for why, and you explained that you're expecting to have Crest done without that corner at Highlands, when did you say we expect to get that actually paved and done?
Crest is paved for the first lift of asphalt.
Yes, the
all
first,
way
but
up.
the second.
But we gotta go back and fix the patches that where they had the sanitary sewer in order to make a nice, clean project with not a bunch of seams in the asphalt. Usually that's like the final coat of paint. You wait until all the other work is done, then you bring the pavers in. Now, our plan is to have all of the other road ready to go here in, like I said, beginning of May. So our plan is to come in and pave that entire thing and be out of there before the end of May.
Okay.
Wrapped up, and they'll never see us again. Hopefully.
Don't make promises like that. You never know. And then I have when talking about Caracas and in that area, because I know you had to redo the pipe on that street, and there's a request from the folks who live on that street. Is there a way that we could replace the curbs and the road base as soon as the project moves west from the alley?
Actually, that's our plan. As soon as we get the equipment, the pipe past the alley, so, because we don't have any way to get in there. We're blocked
Sure.
off. But once we get past the alley, we can bring the materials in.
Great.
Which I believe in the next week or so, we should be able to get in behind ourselves, because we can't access it from the interstate. So we're kind of
yeah.
blocked in. But yes, our plan is, once we get through there, is to start building behind us. So once we get all the way out to Crest, we're locking it up, finishing up. And
Fabulous, fabulous. And my only thing I might do is just knock on those doors and let folks know that's coming, because that will be a huge, they will be very excited. Miss Fiore, that's her big goal right now. So I want to say thank you for that. And then the reason that I asked FDOT to stay was, when was that design sent in?
On Florida? 2 years ago? I mean.
No, the updated one.
Oh, I believe it went in last week.
So last week. So I was wondering if, I hate to put you on the spot, but I would love to know, because, I've heard, I did a tour of the Stormwater project a couple of weeks ago, and I know Councilman Maniscalco has also done one. And what we've been told is that 2 years ago, there was a process, it was agreed upon, and then all of a sudden FDOT changed their minds, and so everybody's mad at us because that road is terrible. So while you're here, I hate to put you on the spot, but you knew it was coming when I asked you to stay for this. So how long will it take for FDOT to make that, to go through this plan, approve it, and when can the citizens expect to be able to drive on real pavement again?
So I can't commit to a date because I'm not really sure where it stands, but I can tell you we can expedite it. And so when I get back to the office, I'll make sure that we move that forward. And I'm not sure what the change was. I know that occasionally what will happen is either we have new information or we have a project that's being considered in the area, which I know in Florida we do, which is the Heights Mobility Project. So it may be that that we made an adjustment just based on what we were planning, but we can expedite that.
I greatly appreciate that, and I'm going to ask, my aide is sick today, so I'm going to ask, Tim Heberlein said that he would help me today, so I'm going to ask him to come out and just get that information so that we're making sure that you can email me directly, and that we'll make sure I get that information to not only the folks who live in the area, but everybody who drives on Florida Avenue who's complaining about their axles.
I think I can help clarify the Florida
Okay.
Avenue work. It is 5 very unique inlets that actually the design does not technically meet DOT specs because of the grades and elevations there and the size of the throat and where you need to put the slabs for those. So it has been a little bit longer of a review for DOT because we got to come to a compromise on those 5 inlets. So that's what the delay, but my understanding is Justin's staff is much closer, and we're close to approval on that.
Okay, great. And I just, yeah, any sort of update. And again, Mr. Nelson, thank you so much. I know others might have questions, but these are the questions that the community asked me to ask, and I again really appreciate it.
Well, the challenge with those inlets, like I said, we're building within existing conditions, so you gotta match the elevation on this side with the
Yep.
elevation on that side and try and tie it all again. And what happened is, we went through a lot of hand-wringing and thought about those particular inlets 2 years ago. Put staffing changes, and now you actually have the field product in the ground, and now you can see it. And sometimes on paper, while it looks like it works on paper, you get out there and looking like, wait a minute, someone's gonna trip over that or hit the wheel on that. Let's step back and revisit it. So that's kind of where we happened, is we were ready to roll, and all of a sudden somebody looked at it and went, maybe we can do a little better here.
Well-
So we're just trying to work through all that stuff.
Thank you.
Yes, and the information you find out, you will share with the rest of council, please.
Oh, absolutely,
Thank
yeah,
you very
because this
much.
is something that we're hearing about over and over from lots of people. And they don't understand that we don't own Florida Avenue.
Sure.
That's something I'll be bringing up later on. Councilman Miranda.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm pleased to hear what you said, and evidently, not only in your case, but whoever's doing the other jobs, whoever's doing any type of work that you deal with another agency, if you or one of your supervisors or anyone sees something that even though the plan calls for, and you feel that that plan is not gonna work, you gotta stop there and go back to the drawing boards of whoever the Florida Department of Transportation did, whoever did the design, so that they can accommodate or make changes to their own plan, or go with your plan or make no changes at all. So hold somebody responsible. So what you're doing there, in essence, is helping what you believe is going to be the right way of doing it, even though it was designed by someone else. And for that part, in essence, you're saving time because it doesn't have to be redone again when it's complete.
Correct, yeah, we met with the DOT 2 years ago and worked through a design, and again, sometimes people have staffing changes, and a fresh set of eyes got to looking at it, and somebody else some concerns about tripping hazards and water flows and stuff like that, and we're working with the DOT to try to continue to make.
That's what I
the
got
best product, yeah.
from what you spoke earlier, and I appreciate what you're doing there and getting things done. I can tell you that on Amenia Avenue, there's been some delays, but it was caused by the plan shows something where something is there, and it's 8 inches over, and when they hit a gas line.
Yeah.
A natural gas line. So these things happen, but it was no one's fault. They're going right by the plan where it's supposed to be, and just an inch or two meets a lot. And the street works that are done, I saw a Corvette make a right-hand turn where they had the big orange bins, and they went right through it, and I don't know what he did to his car, but it was there for him not to turn. So these things do happen, and it's gonna take time, as you want. This is a 20-year project. So we'll get there.
We've done a lot of, when we were doing Marion Street out here, we found wooden water lines from the 18 whatevers it was, with cannonballs and musket balls and all kinds of stuff. And of course, nobody knew exactly where they were because.
Well, I hope you saved it.
Well, the city has all that stuff. They took all that stuff. But you start digging in old streets, you find stuff that it's never where they said it was. And sometimes it's not even there in the first place because somebody pulled it out 20 years ago and nobody took notes that it got pulled out. So, or somebody put it in and didn't put it on the plans that, oh, there's a new gas line over here. So it's not unusual, especially in historic areas, especially to find all kinds of stuff that you never expected. We just gotta deal with it. You just gotta adapt. You make the best laid plans you can. You go up there and then, adapt, overcome, and improvise, or whatever we gotta do to make it all work. So, we're doing the best we can. We're a little concerned about Nebraska, because when we go out into there, again, that road's been there forever. Who knows what's under there? And the same thing, if we opened up Florida, we found a bunch of old cast iron pipe that was on the verge of breaking. So we had to adapt and get new water lines, make new fittings and new kind of stuff. Some of that was specialty order stuff. We're suspecting that we may have the same situation on Nebraska, but we're working close with the DOT. They've actually told us to be prepared for those types of things. If those things are good, don't be surprised. You're gonna dig it up and you're gonna find something that none of us knew was there. It's just part of the business.
Thank you for what you're doing, the way you're doing it.
Okay.
Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you for being here and for another update. Councilwoman Hurtak asked pretty much all the questions. You know, I know she and I get the bulk of the complaints because
I'm
of
sorry about
the
that.
areas we cover. However, you know, I want to publicly thank Will Stock for always being responsive. A few weeks ago, just like Councilwoman Hurtak, I was given a tour of the area. This is beyond, I mean, I drive through there almost every day, every other day, let's say. But he was very specific in going down street by street and telling us what's going on, what's happened, what problems, how they've been remedied, and what's coming. And I know there's a community meeting coming up next week, and I know that it's going to be very well attended. I know a lot of people that live on Caracas, and they've been affected. They've been affected from everything from trash pickup to the road being torn up again. And I know some of them are watching. I spoke with a gentleman yesterday, right there on Caracas, right off Nebraska Avenue, and I understand his frustration. My office, Councilwoman Hurtak's office, we've tried to be very responsive. She did make a comment saying that the amount of calls that we're getting have been reduced, and it's true. Even social media engagement, because people like to go on Facebook and other social media outlets. But, you know, you've been very responsive even through the issues and the delays and the corrections that have had to be made. Hopefully it's smooth sailing going forward. But again, it's a very complicated project. Florida Avenue, because of what you found, there were pipes under there from the 1960s. You mentioned cast iron. Now Nebraska Avenue, another heavily traveled and old road. Who knows what you're going to find. Hopefully it's easy and smooth sailing. But again, I want to thank you for being out here. You know, we're at the front line with our constituents because they contact us, they ask for help. You know, we're not the engineers, we're not working on the project. The best we can do is reach out to the point person, which again is Mr. Stock, and he's always responsive. I email him or call him, either he answers, or if I send an email, the response is within a few minutes. And again, you know, you have a very good person that's leading the way there and overseeing a lot of this stuff. And I just want to say thank you. I'm not going to take any more time because, again, Councilwoman Hurtak asked pretty much everything that I was going to ask. So thank you for being here and for being responsive.
Right, now he's gonna ask me for a raise, thank you. But, no, he's a good guy, he's a good guy, he's doing a very good job out there. And I think as far as Caracas is concerned, I pulled up on the job the other day, and one of the residents was there wearing a Nelson hard hat and a Nelson vest. I thought, oh boy, what have we done here? But, she was talking to our superintendent, she informed with what's going on. I think that it's inconvenient, we know it's inconvenient. We've keeping a more direct line of communication. And I know we're supposed to go through the PR people for all that, but by having my actual guys on the ground talking to the people that live there, rather than everything run through a PR filter, just get a person-to-person conversation seems to have turned the tide there. And I think it's working really well. And I think we made a few friends out there now. Knock on wood, we'll see how that goes in another couple of weeks. But right now, I think we're doing okay. Would you like me to talk about the other part of the job then? Okay, so let's continue around here onto the southeast quadrant of the job. We should be paved on the Caracas on the other side of the interstate the first week of March, with the exception of like the last 120 feet coming up to Nebraska because we have permeable pavers there. Those should be installed by the end of March. On Nebraska itself, we are still seeking some information from the City of Tampa water distribution system, because when we go out there and start turning off water lines, we got to know how everybody's fed. And I think there was a meeting last week with the City of Tampa. There's a little bit of confusion. They're trying to reschedule another meeting because we just got to know where the water comes from, because we can't be turning people off water for any extended period of time. So we're trying to get that information. But we're planning on starting work in Nebraska the beginning of April. Knock on wood, everything. Of course, everything I tell you is weather permitting and stuff of that nature. But it should take about at least 6 weeks is what we're expecting out there. And again, we're expecting to find some stuff, and we'll have to adapt and order materials to it once we figure out what it is. Now, Caracas, east of Nebraska, we're going to follow right on behind that. So if we get out there, so sometime in May, we should be east out of Nebraska and moving to the east into this area here. On the northeast section of our job, the water line is installed, and we should have the first lift of asphalt on it by the end of the week. So we're hoping. There's, some of the residents have approached the city about some additional roadway improvements. That's up to the city. They're working with them. We'll be happy to accommodate. Just tell us what to do. And on the northwest section of our project here, the water line is installed. The south half at Cherokee, the water line at Cherokee has been installed. The south half of the road has base, and it should be paved in the next couple of weeks. The permeable pavers will be installed on the north half by mid-March. And then the last one, the big part, is the central water line we have to put here. And we're planning on starting that water line in mid-March. We do have some concerns, because now that we're starting to do some pothole and digging, some things don't make sense. The water line's a little shallower than it should be. We don't know why the guys in the 50s put it there. We're a little concerned. We start digging things up, we're gonna find some stuff under it that nobody knows about. There's probably nobody alive in the city that knows what's under that stuff. So we'll just have to find it when we get it and figure out how to handle it when we do. And that's all I have to say, unless somebody has any questions.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
No, I just want to, again, thank you for coming out and updating us. And I am going to ask for another update March 16th. Can I make a motion to have another update March 16th? Okay.
I think Ms. Nicole Travis is going to walk up to the podium. No?
No.
Okay. We have a motion made by Councilwoman Hurtak, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed?
Thank you so much.
Motion passes.
Thank you, and I appreciate you moving us up again.
Agenda item number 5, file number BZP 23-79604.
Good morning, Council. Ron Wigington, Legal Department. Item number 5 is a license and hold harmless agreement that was continued from the February 2nd agenda. It's an agreement between the city and Kimmons to use our former brush site as a laydown yard for their stormwater project. The reason why it was continued is because council had received certain emails expressing some concerns about damage to rights-of-way. So basically what we've done is we've extracted the language that was contained in the design build agreement, and we put it into the license agreement. So that addresses most of those concerns. And I am available to answer any questions should you have any.
Any comments, any questions? Seeing none?
Move the resolution.
We have a motion to move the resolution file number PZP 23-79604 by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 6, BZP 23-79607.
Good morning, Council. Adri Colina, Director, Logistics and Asset Management. I am here today to talk on item number 6, which is a resolution requesting your approval to add to the Hannah Avenue GMP. This amount is $3.7 million, and it's broken down as follows. For the solar panels addition to the Fleet and Facilities Building, which Council requested, and we are very happy to support and add because it is important. That's $1.2 million. Roughly, I'm rounding up. And then also adding some EV charging stations to the overall complex. Again, another council add that we were very happy to support. It's $411,000. I'd like to point out that both of these items contributed to the Silver LEED status that we've proudly achieved at the site and to the AIA, American Institute of Architects Award that this unbuilt building has already received. So this is included in this change order, as well as soil remediation. As I shared with each of you during our briefings, there was more soil that we needed, that was contaminated, that we needed to remove from the site than originally anticipated. So this is included in here. It's $1.4 million. And then the last cost is an allowance to construct the facilities building, just the final supplies needed for that buyout process. And then the final thing is a credit of $1.2 million to us because we are able to purchase furniture at a better rate than DPR would have. I'd like to actually give kudos to DPR because this change order that we're coming before you actually does not include any GC fees or any fees that DPR could have charged us. They willingly removed that cost, and we are simply being charged cost, so no additional fees to DPR. So with that, I'm asking for your vote to approve this change order.
Councilman Carlson.
So what's the total cost to date? Is it, I remember about 126, something like that. Is that right?
So the GMP was $101 million, if you'll recall, and so this is adding 3.7 million to that.
So have we gone past the original, I think the original estimate was 108 million. Have we gone past the 108 million yet? I remember.
So the 108 million, let's be clear, that includes the expenses that we incurred in 2015 to assess that site. It also includes the 6.3 million that we paid for the demolition of the building that was on site and the design build. This particular building that we are now constructing, the GMP, was 101 million, and this is adding to that 3.7. So if you add all three together, you are correct, it's the 108, and now we would simply be adding the 3.7 to that.
And I don't have the documents in front of me, but it seems like a couple weeks ago, it said something like 121 million. What was that number?
Well, what I recall with that number, Councilman, was an email that you sent this morning asking for some additional questions as it related to interest and long-term.
When the
But
capital
that number is not this.
When the capital projects summary was presented 2 or 3 weeks ago, wasn't the number that was in there, I don't have it in front of me, sorry, but wasn't the number in there 121? That included all the expenses going back to 2015?
I don't recall that number.
Mr. O'Hara.
Good morning, Council. Dennis Rogero, Chief Financial Officer. I may be able to shed some light on your question, Council. If I could have the Elmo up.
Could you zoom that?
Can I zoom it, or does somebody else zoom it?
There's a wheel on the top.
Yeah, on the top.
Oh, I see.
Very good.
Okay, high tech. Yes, this is our capital improvement project for the Hannah Avenue relocation, as you see here. And although we have a number of contracts in place and a number of funding sources, as you see here, can y'all see that, or do I need to zoom it a little more?
Zoom out, please.
Oh,
Yeah,
too much.
just a little bit, yeah.
Well, I'm going to point to sections.
Okay.
And you see the funding sources here. And as yet to be issued debt issuance of $2.9 million. And then over on the right, here is the total anticipated cost of the project right now, $119.6 million.
And this is including the proposal that we have before us right now?
Yes, the proposal you have before you today changes the contract but does not require an additional appropriation. It uses the funding that's already been approved as part of the CIP.
And are there any other expenses that are being incurred that we haven't approved yet?
Not to my knowledge, but I'll defer to the department, to Ms. Colina.
Can I just ask one more question of you? And
Yes,
we were
sir.
trading emails on it this morning. Thank you for giving me information. But this morning you told me the interest is about 56.5 million.
Yes, sir.
That's over 30 years. And was the number higher at first and you got a better rate, or what's that's the total number over 30 years you anticipate right now, the actual number?
Yes, sir. That's the total number we anticipate right now. Of course, when we issued the debt, it all depends on when you hit the market and timing, things like that. You'll recall we did very well. So we didn't come up with a dollar figure in terms of anticipated interest, but we did come up with a percentage for true interest cost, and we came in below our estimate.
The number I remembered from a year or two ago was something around 71 million, but if you got a better rate, that means you saved 15 million by hitting the market right and getting a better rate, so that's good news.
Yes, sir.
But if you take 119 plus 56.5, that's like 175, is that my numbers right?
It is 169.2 million.
And that's the 119.6 plus 56.5?
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh,
then,
wait a minute. No, I apologize.
And then, and then we don't know what the O&M is yet, right?
In
Operation.
terms of, now that I don't know.
The operation and maintenance.
the O&M. We have a prediction for the O&M, of course, when we costed this out, but again, I'll defer to Ms. Colina for the details.
Last thing I remembered, and I think Councilmember Goods remembered that when we were talking about adding all these things, that they would be included in the 108 million. And I was surprised that this came out. I'm going to vote against this because I think this project is way over budget already. And before somebody in the mayor's office spins it to say that I'm against EV chargers or against solar panels, I'm 100% in favor of that. They tried to say that because I voted against the budget that I'm somehow against raises for police and fire, which is not what the city kind of information the city should be put out. So I'd appreciate if they would not misconstrue this. But I think that this, my understanding is these things that we're being asked to spend money on now were included in the original budget. And I think 108 million was too much. I think 120 million is way too much. And if you include, we're up to like 175 plus O&M is probably over 200. I think it's way too much, and we need to stay within budget. So I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Councilman Goods.
I asked that question. I said, what is the total cost of this project? And I asked that question yesterday, as far as this number for the solar. I'm for solar, that I know some councilors are deeply into the charging station, so because that's the new innovation that's coming, but it seems like the price keeps going up and up and up as we go. Every 6 months, it's like it's evolving. I know costs do go up because of the economy and things like that, but I was under the impression that was our bottom line at the 108. And I never imagined it was going to jump to, it could be more than 2. It could be more the way this thing is fluctuating. But I think you were coming. I asked that question, is this the bottom line price for this whole project to be completed and done with? But I guess that's not the right answer.
Mr. O'Hara.
Thank you, sir. Council, again, just to clarify and make sure we're all on the same page, the adopted capital improvement project amount was $119.6 million. The total debt service to date, to answer your question, we have a little bit of a discrepancy in our communication because of a premium, which is good news, which we received when we issued the $165 million in debt for any number of projects, including Hannah. The total debt service to date is the $169.2 million I referenced, because in my calculations, but you don't have it in front of you, includes about $4 or $5 million worth of premium.
I'm sorry.
Councilman Carlson, you're recognized.
So if I remember correctly, the number you sent me this morning, just for this project, the interest is $56.5 million. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And you would add that, I apologize for interrupting you, to $115.6 million in principal.
But you just showed the number 119,600.
Yes, that's because we gained about $4 million in premium when we issued the debt service. And that can come about due to a couple of reasons: good timing in the market, and candidly, because the market and investors think we're a good investment. They gave us more money than the face value of the bonds.
And I think, as I said before, I think that's good news that you got a discount from what I remembered anyway on the interest. So you saved like 15 million plus 4 million. That's great. But my other concern, which I mentioned a minute ago, is the O&M. I don't understand why 6 months out we don't have any idea what the O&M is going to be. I'm guessing, talking to developers, but this morning we were all trading emails about the rental equivalent. I think that business case should have been made a few years ago, and then we could have compared apples and apples. But anyway, this project is almost done. I just think we have to look at the budget carefully. I'm absolutely in favor of the solar panels and the EV, but I'm not in favor of increasing the overall budget. I think this project is way over budget. When I talk to business people, they say a building for 500 people should cost $20 million, and they're shocked that it costs so much. So I just can't approve any more. We'll probably be in the minority, but I can't approve any more increases. Thank you.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
I'm forgetting the word. I think it's fringe. What's the 20% extra you usually plan for? Was that in this?
Contingency.
Thank you, contingency. I just couldn't figure it out this morning. Contingency, what was the contingency for this? Like, did we have a contingency in
We did. I don't know what the total contingency appropriation was at this time. Perhaps Ms. Colina does.
I do. We did have a contingency. It was 2.9 million. What we did not have, we used our contingency at this point to accommodate council's requests and purchase the solar panels because there are long lead times. And now what we are asking for is to replenish that contingency because remember, two of these items, two of the larger ones, were council requests. And they were made when we presented the GMP in November of 2021. So there is no way anyone could have thought that was included in there because it was made at that time. And now this is the first time we come before you to ask for additional funds. This is change order number 1. We have asked for nothing in between. And today, again, a bulk of it is things that council asked for. And let me also tell you, I've worked very closely with Whit Raymer, our Sustainability and Resiliency Officer. And much of this money we can have returned to us through the Infrastructure Reduction Act. In fact, just going on the numbers for what we have for the solar panels, we're looking at about $1 million returning to us. With regard to the soil remediation overall, again, there is a state program that will reimburse us about $1.5 million when it's all said and done. So be assured, we are being very fiscally responsible and we are keeping an eye on it all. This ask was, again, a big bulk was council's request, and we are happy to accommodate it, but that's why we are here.
I apologize. If I can just add an addendum to Ms. Colina.
Sure.
Again, it's just my intent to make sure we're all on the same financial page. From a contract perspective, as Ms. Colina said, it is an increase, but it is not an increase in the funding for the project in total. We are moving funding within the $119.6 million that's part of the CIP to accommodate these increases in credits. So from a contract perspective, it's an increase, but we're not adding funding to this project. Again, just want to make sure we're all clarified.
So the 119 is not affected by this
Correct.
3.7?
Correct,
It's
ma'am.
part of it. But I have a question about the soil remediation. You said it's a 1.4 million. How in the world can we get 1.5 million back?
The 1.4 is just the addition. We did account for
Oh,
some soil
okay,
remediation. And yes, ma'am, this is additional because remember I had mentioned when we began excavation, there was actually more contaminated soil on the site that no one would have known till excavation began. So this is just to continue the cleanup that we have to do in that area.
Okay, and so we're applying for the state to refund money? Is this a process we have to, is this like a grant that we may or may not win? How certain are we to get $1 million back for soil and 1.5 million back for soil remediation? What's the certainty?
So we are 100% certain on the soil remediation. It is a brownfield site, and we have already been working on that, and we are definitely getting that back. As far as the Infrastructure Reduction Act, again, I'm working with the Sustainability and Resiliency Officer. As you know, that just went into effect. So we will be working hard on that as well.
I'm really torn on this. I mean, I wasn't here for this, and I think solar's great. I think EV's great. But this is a lot of money, and we're out of RMAP money. We don't have any more money to go toward housing. This, keeping people in their housing, 1.6 million, I could really go toward that, and I understand that it's in this, but I'm hesitating here.
Councilman Vieira.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to make this clear. So was this money necessitated due to a request from this city council for addition to the projects? Is that correct?
Just being completely clear, it is council, but Councilwoman Hurtak was not there at that time.
Oh, yeah, no, and I don't mean Councilwoman Hurtak. I mean us as a body. This
Yes,
was not
sir.
in response to, no, just to be clear, no. Just as a body, did we as a body make this request? Because that's important to me.
Yes, sir, for two of the items you did. Yes, sir, in November of 2021.
Roughly how much of a percentage of the money sought do those two items take, roughly?
It's about 1.6 million.
Okay, so a substantial portion of it. Okay, that's all. I just wanted that for my own information. That's all. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, again, if I could clarify, and your point is well taken, Councilwoman, but I do want to clarify that this particular funding would be unavailable for, okay. All right, thank you.
Anyone, Councilman Miranda?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I sometimes think a little different than most. Have we ever considered if the whole item was never built, what would it cost to rent a building, to run the process, so we can compare the whole thing? So let's have clarity in what it costs to rent something like that. And what do you think the future increases in rents are going to be, like they are right now all over the city, all over the country? So have you ever done any analytical studies on what you know it costs, and you know what the O&M is going to be versus what the rent is, where you're never going to own anything and you're going to be paying forever, and you don't know if your rent's going to go up after your contract is over in 5 years or 10 years or what have you. We have been renters for a long, long time. And most of those buildings are not in great shape. There's been very little that the tenant can do because it's owned by someone else. Am I way off base, or am I leading you too much, or where am I at? Because my mind is thinking real quick.
No, sir. To my knowledge, we have done some of what you've asked. We have done market comparisons of what it would cost us to rent space similar to what we're occupying now on North Boulevard, Lemon Street, and at the GTE building. We have not yet done an analysis of the exact square footage that we'll get from Hannah and renting that particular square footage. We have drafted it, but I don't believe it's final. But we have done a rental savings analysis, if you will, of what it would cost to rent the equivalent of North Boulevard, GTE, and Lemon Street.
But even those are small in comparison to the size of Hannah.
They are.
So then your study is only narrowed to those three, or to the whole complex, because rent, and that's commercial rent, so it's got a different rate than residential rent.
Yes.
So if possible, I'm not saying you got to do it, maybe you can have some of those numbers available in the future. Just an idea of what it is.
Yes, and I
like to balance out the balance sheet, what it costs and what it doesn't cost if you go rent.
Certainly, certainly.
And prospectively, I would think that this is going to cost more than this.
I can share the Lemon Street, I'm sorry.
And let me say this.
Yes.
And if I'm wrong, then the rents will never facilitate the buyout. You would never build anything, you rent if it was cheaper. But it's not cheaper in my mind, because the people now that have a problem, if they had a house, they wouldn't have a problem. Problem is, there wasn't the availability for them to buy a house. And there's where we're at. I'm comparing a small thing with a big thing. And when you talk about these things, and I heard a comment, well, you can't buy a house now because you're building this for somebody. Well, let me tell you something. Every time you lose $100,000 in here, $100,000, they throw it out like it was $1. That house ain't going to be built either. So what I'm saying is you got to toughen our belt, all of us, and have a goal. And when you don't have, you can build a house for somebody. They call it whatever, attainable, rentable, workforce. They have 5 names for it. But at the end of the day, that house is built. That house is built, and if it's not going to be accommodating for the O&M of that house, and part of that is solar, we got a problem. Now you're going to have a house that somebody may be able to afford the cost of payment, but the electric bill is going to eat them up. They won't pay the electric bill. There you go. So you have a catch-22 you're putting yourself in. That's why I mentioned it before, somewhere along the line, and when we do these things in the FAR, that we consider one of the things that is the developer wants extra, let them put the solar in so they can build 1 or 2 more units. Something that's got to be done so that that house becomes more amenable, more payable to whoever is going to get that house. To build the structure is the easy thing. To maintain it is another thing. And if you put solar and you put unattainable things, a little better window so that the air condition doesn't go out the window and different things are done, you insulate it better, that individual is going to be able to make the house without worrying too much about the fluctuation in rates. I can tell you that I put solar in and I was great until last month. and something happened when I was usually getting 500 and some credits, whatever it is, versus 700 that I bought. All of a sudden, I got 1,300 that I used, and Tico gave me 5 instead of just 5, no more than 5. I don't know what happened. Maybe the solar wind vanished, maybe it didn't work, maybe my neighbor took it, which I don't think they did. So what I'm saying is there's something wrong somewhere along the line, and electricity is gonna get harder and harder and higher in cost from what I read. I see this coming up, and it's gonna be the next thing. I can't control the price of meat, the price of eggs, the price of fish, the price of rice, the price of bananas. I can't control any price. And it's happening everywhere, not only in houses, not only in buying a car, not only in maintaining the car, but the food chain that we have in this country is something to be looked at. There's too many things going on. Yes, I agree that the chicken flu, whatever you want to call it, killed millions of chickens. One thing I read, 43 million chickens. The price of eggs now, you can't afford to make 2 scrambled eggs. It's getting to the point that it's causing hardship on everyone. And by the way, people making $100,000 a year, they've had an increase of 16% and not being able to meet their needs. Thank you very much.
I apologize if I can, again, clarify and respond. I will ensure that you get the rent savings estimates for Lemon Street, the GTE building, and North Boulevard. And we are, I'm sorry, yes, sir.
Yeah, but Lemon Street is a deal that we've worked out with some other government agency. I think it's rented out for something very insignificant.
I'm talking about the rent savings we wouldn't pay by a comparable square footage. So I'll share that with you. As I said, we're working on a comparable square footage analysis of the new Hannah City Center.
Thank you.
I do agree with you regarding the cost of electricity, for instance, but again, I defer to the department for operating and maintenance cost estimates.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
I was not on this council when this was approved, but I was a member of a neighborhood association who was affected. I sat on the board of Old Seminole Heights. We were invited when the main plan got put out. And one of the questions I stood up and asked was, is this building going to be able to house new employees for the next 20 years or so? Will it have room for growth? And I was told yes. But now we're finding that there's no room there to bring the CRA staff in. There's no room to bring folks from the water department in. We are at max capacity. And I don't know how we can be at a max capacity if we're not even done with this building yet. So we're being told that there's not going to be room for people to move into this building. We need to rent other space. No, I mean, this is what I've been told, that we're looking for. Remember, in the CRA meeting, we were talking about, where are they going to go? There's no room for them at Hannah Avenue. Do we have space still in this building?
Absolutely, and I'm not sure, I'm sorry you were misinformed. I'm not sure who told you that. CRA was never going to that building, and they still are not. But every user department that we have been working with has built in for growth, and there is ample space in that building. If you could tell me who misinformed you, I'm happy to speak with them. But I wish you would have spoken with me. I've been working very closely with every department, and I can assure you, there is space there.
So there's space that we could put our CRA staff?
Your CRA staff was never going there. We have 6 departments going there, and we've been clear of those 6. CRA was never there.
That's correct.
Okay.
Nicole Travis, Administrative Development and Economic Opportunity. When Hannah Avenue was planned for, they planned for the different work groups. There was never a consideration at the time to put CRA under one roof and for that to be Hannah Avenue. We just recently started having conversations, which I had with you last week, but I've had conversations with Ms. Colina to see what we have. There are different work groups that are in the municipal building right next door that are going to have Hannah Avenue. There's a lot of shuffling, but CRA has never been a part of the consideration to go to Hannah, nor are they a part of the consideration to go to Hannah right now.
Okay, so Ms. Colina, how much space do we have available for additional staff? Like, how many more staff can currently the thought be that we have the space to house?
So if you're asking in the main building, there's a total of 161,000 square feet in the main building. There's additional space in the fleet and facilities building, and each department has projected their growth for 5 years. So I can't tell you, I can't get to that granular level of how many square feet per department, but I could tell you that each department that were part of the original plan to move and are still the ones moving have included growth for 5 years.
Okay, and how many people are actually moving there?
So it's approximately 500 employees on the whole complex.
Okay.
Councilman Hurtak, if I may, so for instance, the housing department is one of the departments that's moving there. In this current budget cycle, we added new positions in fiscal year 24. I anticipate that there is additional housing students. So the space that we did project for growth, those new employees would be able to be accommodated at Hannah. Same is true for our development and growth management team. You have planning, you have construction services. Those teams are growing through fiscal year 23, 24. We are accommodating for that growth in Hannah, and they are accommodated for in the new building right now. So to Ms. Kalina's point that it's broken down in each department and we anticipated how we'll grow. I don't know that we anticipated we'll grow as fast as we needed to for housing, but we still are able to accommodate that growth with what we projected for our departments in the Hannah building.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then, Mr. O'Hara, I have one more question for you. With this,
Yes, ma'am.
the actual number for this being at 119 million,
Yes, ma'am.
and this would be included in that 119 million, how much more space then do we have?
I will again defer to Ms. Colina, but I don't believe we're getting any additional space with this transaction.
No, not space, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm talking about money. So if you're saying
okay.
that there's 119 in this bucket, and somehow this 3.75 will be part of this 119 million, how much is then left as our contingency, wiggle room, whatever? How much money is left in that bucket?
I'd have to calculate that to give you an accurate answer and distribute it to you. I can call you, I can send it to council as a whole. I don't know.
Sure, so, but maybe 10%? I mean, just like a rough estimate.
I wouldn't want to hazard a guess at the risk of being inaccurate.
Okay,
But I'll provide it to you.
okay.
Councilman Goose.
All right, so we're talking about space now. So we're talking about all of those folks are moving out of T-Mob. That means we're gonna have a lot of empty space over here.
We will have some space in T-Mob. Purchasing is moving, the EBO office is moving, so yes, sir. And we have worked to talk about moving CRA staff into that building. I've been working, as Ms. Travis said, closely with her. So we're shuffling space around to make sure we are putting our departments where they can best service our customers.
So who else is moving in that building next door? Of all those departments that leaving out of there, who else is moving over to T-Mob?
So right now, the two departments that I mentioned leaving, we have CRA staff coming. And then we have just some expansion in the building. You know, growth. The same way the staff that's moving to Hannah or the departments that's moving to Hannah, the departments that are remaining at TMOB, i.e. HR, each fiscal year, those departments add as well. So we have a need for space in TMOB. So Hannah is relieving some of the strain that currently exists in TMOB.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome, Councilman.
Anyone else?
I apologize again, Chair and Council, but I have someone who knows far more about brownfield remediation than I do who can speak to that if you'd like.
I'm good.
No, you're good? Okay.
Good. Anyone else? Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, just a couple things real fast. I think it's better to have CRA outside of that building, and so
100%
in fact, I think they should move to Ybor because it's the center of everything, and a lot's happening there. but that's a CRA decision. On the rent, Mr. Harrow and several of us were trading emails this morning, just behind the I don't know what the O&M costs are over 30 years, but if you look at it just with estimated numbers, it looks like we could have saved a lot by renting, but that doesn't, as I said in my memo, that doesn't include the capital value of whatever the building and property's worth at the end. And so what I would recommend, I mean, we could make a motion at some point, but what I would recommend is that maybe sometime in the next few months that the city hire a licensed appraiser, commercial appraiser, to do a valuation of the building. And if a licensed accredited appraiser, commercial appraiser, says the building's worth more than 120 million, then we've got a great asset there, and we've got a lot of equity, and it will be a great decision above whatever the rent would have cost. But Mr. O'Hara and I are trading some memos on the rental equivalency, and I assume at the end of that, he'll circulate it to my colleagues so they can see it. But
Yes, sir.
I'm glad. I want to thank everybody for trading all those numbers, because it's good to go through the exercise, even though in the end it probably will show that it's better to have a building, but at least want to go through the intellectual exercise so that we can explain our constituents why the decision was made the way it was.
Understood.
Thank you.
Councilman Miranda.
I'm not speaking to any, but in general, what's happening here in this area, not only in the city of Tampa, this area, people that I know buy a house before it's built. They put the down payment, the house goes up, they buy the house. They're not gonna live there. If they have the down payment money or other money to secure a loan, within 6 months, they sell the house and make $50,000. So that doesn't apply to us. I don't need to hire an appraiser. I can tell you, if I was in Timbuktu, China, maybe I need an appraiser, because it's going down. But right here, number one and number two, relocation of all in the United States of America. And I'm not bragging, I'm just telling you what we're facing every day. And that's what the struggles that we have. The roads, the housing. There's so many things that come with this that it's very difficult to continue to maintain, because you're number one now, and the roads can't get wider. We got the pipe program going to make it easier to facilitate the water, and when you flush the toilet, it goes somewhere without leaking all over the place. So those things are being done. So any building that you buy, if not the real estate market, would go to hell. Or I should say H-E-double hockey sticks. I should take the word back. So what we're saying then is that don't buy anything, because it's never going to value. And I'm not making comments to any council members. The reality is that the investors that are smart buy the houses, don't live in them, and resell them before anybody moves in. And we're talking about that. I think I got a problem with the investment in the city, that the people come in, and most of them don't even live here. They buy with speculation to resell. Look at all the development in downtown and housing. They're not going for $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a unit. They're going for $500,000, $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million, the big ones. I certainly don't have that capital. Most of us don't have that capital, but they're making it. You think that they're spending money because they think they're going to lose money? These individuals have done this before. They're not rookies. They're seasoned individuals in the operation of real estate. And when you realize that, hey, I don't like to spend $120 million on anything. You know what? It's getting harder and harder and harder for everyone to survive. And don't quote me, you can research that 100,000. I saw that in one of the articles. I don't know if it was in the same Tampa Times or which one I saw it on. But there's something that has to be said. If nobody buys and everybody rents, I guess everybody's happy. Is that what I'm hearing? You know, how come everybody doesn't rent? How come buildings are bought and sold? How come houses are bought 20 years later? Listen, I bought a house 100 years ago, 1964, for $12,600. I can sell it now for $400,000. The problem is I can't buy another one for $400,000. So that's the problem that I have. And I love my neighborhood. So what if my net gain is 0? But if I was an investor and I had 3 or 4 of them, they ain't gonna buy it for $12,600, but they buy it for $350 or $375. And just in the spread of 15, 20% rate, they make a few $1,000s, like $30,000 or $40,000 on every time they buy a house. Those are called flippers. So there's where I'm at. Unless I'm blind and I don't see where I'm going, and I don't see the price of the housing coming down, even though they say there's a market now that's stable, which is fine. The property values in this area, to my knowledge, if they come down, it'll be minimal because they're gonna go back up. Just like the stock market. Stock market was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it was at 15,000. Now it's at 34,000, and the people are nervous that it went down 500 points. The same ones that had it at 15 still have it at 34, and they're still not happy. I don't know what the hell they want, H-E-double hockey sticks. What is it they want? But thank you.
Anyone else?
I just would like to say one more thing, Chairman, if I may. To Councilwoman Hurtak's question regarding the Inflation Reduction Act, Representative Kathy Castor was instrumental in that. And it was intended for cities like Tampa to recoup those funds. And again, we are working closely with her. And I also want to just remind everyone that if this change order isn't passed, and there's still a cost at this point. In good faith, those solar panels have already been purchased, so there's a restocking fee. We have already paid engineers on how to appropriately affix these to those structures. So I just want to throw that out there as well. And that's all I have. Thank you.
I have a quick question for Mr. O'Hara. If we were to get that money back, where would it go?
Which particular money? The brownfield remediation?
$1 million for solar and the $1.5 million for soil remediation. If we got that back, where would that money, what bucket would it end up in?
It would end up in the Hannah project bucket.
Okay, and when the Hannah project buckets are, when the project is done, would that money go back to paying back debt, or?
Okay, I see where you're going with this question. We would bring a recommendation to City Council, but yes, it could go to any number of purposes. Once it was free and clear of the project itself, and in so much as it wasn't associated with the debt funding. The debt is it is the primary funding source, but it's not the only funding source. For instance, utility services taxes also funded this project.
Okay. So it couldn't be used elsewhere. It would have to be used for the Hannah project, but it would ideally bring down the cost to some degree.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? The EV charging station is one of the two talking points about these monies. I made the motion for that. And if we're going to be a resilient city, and we're going to try and cut our carbon footprint, and some of our fleet, hopefully the majority of our fleet will be going EV, we're going to need these charging stations, and I would gladly make that motion again. Former Councilman Dingfelder, who wanted the solar panels on top of this building and the convention center after its remodel, and other government buildings around the city of Tampa, was a brilliant idea. And I supported him on that, and I would do it again if we're going to be a resilient, clean energy city and cut our carbon footprint. Last week, or the week before, when I made my comments about having CRA at this building, it wasn't for CRA staff. It was for a meeting place for all the boards, committees, and commissions. This building is not a monolithic, sterile building. It's going to house a wellness center. It's going to have green space. It's going to have meeting rooms. There's going to be so much more to this than just a sterile building housing our workforce. What is the pleasure of council? Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I've stayed quiet and I've listened. I'm going to move this resolution, but also say that, between this and between pipes. You know, these are historical investments, and not just our infrastructure, but in parts of the community that have been ignored. So when we talk about legacy, here it is. And I understand the cost savings, and we'll get a better analysis of renting versus buying. I understand moving and consolidating to Hannah Avenue, the benefits of it. So with that, I move this resolution.
We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco to move the resolution for file number BZP 23-79607, seconded by Councilman Miranda. Do we want a roll call vote?
Sure.
Roll call vote, please.
Vieira,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
As I said before, this was originally two buildings for 100 million, then it went to 108, now 120. I am in favor of EV and solar. I completely object to the massive cost overruns and the massive cost of this. It's not going to be cheaper than rental, and we may be able to justify it because we won't have to relocate at some point, but I don't think the proper due diligence was done on this project at the beginning. I'm against every additional cost increase of this expensive building, and I vote no. Thank you.
Goods,
I'm gonna vote for it because expenses have all been incurred with the purchase and the hiring of people to install and do this kind of work. So I'm gonna support it today.
Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried with Carlson voting no.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Agenda item
Council.
Thank you, Council.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
I just want to, again, request that we get that understanding of how much of the 119 million has already been encumbered
Yes,
and
ma'am.
what's free. So that's,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you.
Councilman Carlson.
Also, Dennis or Gene or whoever may be watching, a couple weeks ago in our, I think it was in our workshop, we had an update on the capital investment program. And I was just looking just now on SIRE, and I can't find any backup documents on SIRE to that. There was a PowerPoint, which I found, but there was also a document that was mostly Word written document that had budgets in it. Could you please, somebody circulate that back around to City Council electronically? I search and search and can't find that document. I think it was handed out to us in the meeting itself. But we should, I think the PowerPoint and that document should be added to SIRE if they're not already.
Certainly, sir, and we'll make sure it's also gets put on the web.
Okay, thank you.
Council, we're at 11:30. We're going to have a hard stop at 12 o'clock. We're only on agenda item number 7. So just letting you know, we're going to have a hard stop at 12 o'clock. Agenda item number 7, file number BZP 2379838.
Good morning again, Brad Baird, Deputy Administrator of Infrastructure. Talk about item 7, which is a guaranteed maximum price of $44.7 million with Kiewit Infrastructure South Company for the construction of pipeline replacement in 4 neighborhoods, including Forest Hills, Virginia Park, McFarland Park, and East Tampa. We have written a memo on it, and I'm here to answer any questions on it.
Any questions for the gentleman, Councilwoman Hurtak?
So from my understanding, this is just water, correct?
Correct. 99%. There is a small amount of stormwater in Forest Hills.
Okay. Was this always planned to just be a water?
No, it was not. Originally, 3 years ago, when this project started, it included improvements in transportation, stormwater, and wastewater, as well as water.
So why aren't we doing the complete project?
Bottom line is lack of funding. The funding for the transportation was to come from all for transportation. The stormwater improvement assessment program has been significantly impacted because as of last summer, SWIFMUD has ceased to fund stormwater improvements. With wastewater, a little bit different. We did continue on with lining quite a bit of the pipes. However, at this phase for GMP 5, we had planned to move some of the pipelines that were in the alley to the street. However, a couple months ago, we found some issues, some leaks with our oxygen plant out at Howard Curran. And so that project was originally planned for 3 to 4 years from now, had to be moved up, and then moved this project out, if you will, for the alley replacements. But we were able to continue on with the pipe bursting for water and at least do that in the 4 neighborhoods.
But this means then that we're gonna be tearing up the road twice.
No, well, the pipe bursting does not involve tearing up the road.
Oh,
So what it will mean is especially for transportation and stormwater, they tended to be lower priorities than other projects they had on the list. So if we do eventually get funding in those areas again, we will, properly prioritize them, and then maybe some of these improvements will be made, but it'll be years in the future.
so in the meantime, what's gonna happen to the sewer?
In the meantime, this will be the final work on it. We're finishing up GMP 3 and 4, which is wastewater pipelining and other water replacement that we called early works. And then this will be the final work in all 4 neighborhoods. And it's projected to take about 2 years to do this work.
Okay, so what you're saying is instead of moving the sewer lines from the alleys into the roadway, we're simply gonna be lining the pipes?
That's correct.
Okay,
And,
thank
yeah,
you.
And we did re-TV those lines, and we were able to significantly reduce the costs on that and line those lines in the alley.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilman Goode.
See, I knew in my heart this was going to happen, and I said this. See, you can't, it's what I call, you can't gauge my pocket. And I said that.
Yep.
I said that. I said, you guys are banking on all for transportation money, and you're putting it in budgets, you're adding dollars and cents in the budgets. And I said, well, what happens when you don't get that money? And it's twice you ain't getting that money. So now how you gonna reevaluate all of these projects now? Because now you're coming to us and the question is, yeah, well, what happens? Now you said we're gonna do this and we only could do this because you calculated dollars that you don't have. And I said that. Why would you calculate money that you don't have? And to me, it's the craziest budgeting scheme ever. If I don't got it, I'm hoping I'm gonna get it. I'm hoping I can pay for it. Bad business practice. If I ain't got it, I mean I can't pay for it. That's one problem. 44, it's a lot, that's a big number, man. But we talked about that yesterday. I'm not gonna go into a whole spiel, we wanna get time restraint, but again, I say, we have to start saying, yes, we have a schematic outline we're trying to utilize for our EBO. But at some point, we have to start telling people, this is where we need to be. And there's nothing wrong with telling people, this is where we need to be. Because to justify this money, and I got this amount of money going to the people at the bottom, people question those. So we talked about that. Hope we have another conversation with Mr. Hart about that. We need to start telling people we have a threshold we really want to meet. So I'm gonna leave it at that, Brad, but it just upsets me that we've got projects embedded in the offer transportation, which we're not gonna get that money. That's the only upsetting part, and I knew that was going to happen.
Understood.
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, and I think, as I also said, when we talked about the transportation budget a few months ago, I don't think we're gonna get that in the next few years. I mean, CIT is coming up. We've got a leadership in Tallahassee that's not gonna allow it. There's no movement on consultants trying to work with the opposition in Hillsborough County. And so we've got to plan our future over the next 4 to 8 years without that money. And if it comes in, then that'll be bonus. But on the pipes project and stormwater, although this is mostly pipes, the public supports both of those programs, and they would like the programs to move as quickly as possible with the least amount of disruption. I talked to Ms. Duncan about Bob's barricades and other things being left around in places. For some reason, Bayshore by Bay to Bay has been shut down for like 2 weeks. There's an area over by Beach Park that's been shut down. And we need to make sure that the contractors move that stuff as quickly as possible because we're already overtaxed on transportation. And so we need to be able to open things up. But the public supports this, and so I'm going to vote yes on it. I would ask you all, please be sensitive to the traffic needs of the community and move as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Move the resolution.
We have a motion to move the resolution. File number BZP 23-79838 by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor say aye. Aye. Is there any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Agenda item number 9. Agenda item number 10. File number CM 22-78934.
Good morning, Chair and Council. Brandon Campbell, Smart Mobility Manager, representing the Mobility Department. Item 10 is an issue about the traffic coming from Trader Joe's and affecting the intersection of Dale Mabry and Swan. We have uploaded a memo that addresses the history of that site, some of the options that are available to us, and some of the zoning compliance questions that were raised. I'm here for any questions.
Any comments or questions? Councilman Goods.
Thank you for the memo. I think we talked yesterday about this. I don't want to create another issue because, that road doesn't belong to us. And we talked about what Trader Joe may be trying to do in the future. But I just want to make sure whatever plan you do try to come up for the time being, it doesn't create another problem for the communities. Because what I'm hearing, if you're going to divert something into communities, that could be a problem. So I just want to make sure we're mindful of how we're going to do that.
Understood. And the option that we did put in the memo that Councilman Goods is referring to was the potential to limit their driveway to a right-in, right-out access only. Not something that we would pursue without first engaging with the community because there are some ancillary impacts, routing people through the neighborhood, that sort of thing, nearby driveways as well.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I thank you very much. I had never been to Trader Joe's about 3 or 4 months ago. I just never had the time, really. But what I saw there was wow. And it looked like a beehive with people coming in and out. This time the bees weren't there, but the cars were just moving around. And I was amazed that there wasn't any more accidents. That more likely, maybe I hope there weren't any, but I haven't checked that. But is there a way, and I'm looking at the legal department asking, is there a way when you take a business in, and although that one was already, the zoning didn't have to change. When they bought it, they were entitled to go there, and that's the only reason they're there. But going into the future, like sometimes we pass the things here in the council and they say, well, we want a 2-space reduction. Is there any way legally that if we say, yeah, you can have a 2-space reduction, but if those 2 spaces creates a problem, that now you got more parking than you can handle, you got to solve that problem. In other words, the contracts that we sign now and all developments are one way. I'm thinking, based on what this gentleman just said, should there be a line in there that if you go over the assigned thing and those 2 spaces that you didn't have now becomes a problem, why blame it on us? You're the one that recommended it to us, and you said it was fine that, everything is going to be copacetic. You're going to build a new building, and you don't need parking because the millennials are all going to ride bicycles. That's what I've been hearing. I'm not opposed to the millennials riding bicycles. But what happens that it doesn't happen? Why should we be responsible for the act of someone else?
Good morning, Council. I'm Gregory, Assistant City Attorney. So when this was approved, there was no additional parking needed.
I said that.
Right. And so we can't go back to change that.
But I'm using this location as an example to what we can do if something needed change when
So,
it came in. Because we do waiver parking. We waiver a lot of parking.
Right, and
Even on
Andrew,
buildings,
if
from
that's more of
old floor to old.
a zoning question, a little outside of my,
Thank you. Andrea Zellman, City Attorney. I think what you're asking is when you have those zoning cases where they're asking for parking waivers, could you have some sort of condition that had a reopener if problems resulted as a result of the waiver? So yes, I mean, that would necessitate drafting a condition, assuming you're talking about a PD zoning site plan approval where someone is asking for a waiver. Yes, we could look into drafting some sort of condition that would reopen the waiver within some time period if parking issues developed. I think, you know, to Emma's point, at the time at which Trader Joe's, I mean, when Trader Joe's came in, they didn't have to rezone.
I know that.
So the parking on the site was the parking on the site.
In other words, when we see in a plan, and I'm not anti-development, I think if the people keep moving here, they gotta have a place to live. They gotta have, all the parking that we see downtown has been adequate to some degree. And when I see things coming in now that cut the parking by 15 or 20%, it's incumbent that we're gonna take the hit if that happens to be a miscalculation. Not that they did it intentionally, but it was a miscalculation. So we're the ones that are gonna have to be looking around for additional parking somewhere. Why is the burden put on the taxpayers? And if that portion is not great enough to contain the parking requirements for that size, why should we be responsible? That's what I'm saying. That's all. Just an idea on what I've learned today from Trader Joe's. I'm not blaming Trader Joe's for my thought, but it just came to mind because of Trader Joe's.
Okay. We could look into, you know, whether that would be, I would caution a condition like that had a reopener. You know, obviously this would be something that would happen farther down the road after the site was already constructed and everything was built. So I'm just thinking out loud, the reopener would have to ask them to address the parking deficiency in some other way, like providing off-site parking. But in any event, and I'm sure we'll get pushback, obviously, from the applicants, but it's something we can look into and see if it's feasible.
I'll make a motion later on, 60 days from now or 90 days. I know you're very swamped with a lot of work that you have, all the legal department is. And I appreciate your thoughts.
Ms. Selma, don't go anywhere because I'll have a question for you. Councilman Carlson, please.
If I could just respond to Councilman Miranda, I just want to tell you, I spoke to a group of UT students the other day. It was about 30, 40, and I think they're all Generation Z, like younger than millennials. And I said, okay, how many of you, I said, we have these questions about parking coming up. How many of you have cars? And almost everyone except two have cars. And I said, well, if you all were going downtown, how many of you would drive versus taking a scooter or bike? And all but two or three raised their hand that they would drive from UT to downtown. So it gives you a pretty good idea of what's going on. Yeah.
My question from last time still hasn't been answered. We can't do anything about their driveway. However, the traffic going in and out is affecting our street, Swan. There has been people telling me, calling me and saying that the traffic heading east is backing up all the way to Church Street. The traffic heading west is backing up through Dale Mabry. Can we not make them pay for a officer to be out there directing traffic, where if people can't make that left-hand turn into Trader Joe's, the officer can wave them on to stop any type of traffic jams there?
Offhand, I'm not aware of anything in our code that would give us the right to require that. You know, so I think mobility could talk about other ways to redirect traffic or whatever, but there's nothing in our code that would give us the ability to ask an existing business to provide that kind of extra.
Because what I'm told, the traffic jams there are tying up Dale Mabry and Swan and Church. It's just, okay, thank you. Now I have my question answered. Agenda item number 12, CM 22-78781.
Good afternoon, or morning again, Andrea Zellman, City Attorney. I just told the chief I thought we were gonna be Sonny and Cher on this. But this is both item 12 and 13. We combined our responses because it really was talking about the same issue, the residency requirements. So hopefully you've had the opportunity to read the memo. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. We provided a chart showing the current status of those employees who are required to reside and be an elector in the city of Tampa. And we talked a little bit within the memo about the historical, that since the beginning of this administration, which again is the first administration to even have the waiver ability, thanks to our Charter Review Commission and the voters, since the beginning of the administration, we had 16 individuals who sought residency waivers. Since that time, since the beginning of the mayor's administration, many of those people have moved into the city. 3 left the city, 2 of which I believe left because of the residency requirements. But that's why when you look at the current status, we only have a few people who are still serving under a waiver, and that's because they came more recently and are still eligible to receive a residency waiver.
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, thank you for doing this. And would you mind putting the chart on the overhead just so the public can see? I thought the chart was excellent. It had all the information that we need, maybe twisted around a little bit sideways. No, but it's very clear.
Zoom out a bit.
It's very clear where everybody stands. And you also, in your memo, you talked about the charter allowing 2 one-year extensions. And then after that, it's done. But the question I have, besides just making sure the public sees this, because there are a lot of questions, is the residency, as I understand it from your memo, is self-reported. And there's been at least one incident in the last few years, not naming any names, where there was an allegation that someone lived in an address that was not in the city, but had an address of a relative where that person did not live as a residency in Tampa. And so I'm just wondering, how do we police this? And if we find out that someone's maybe not residing inside the city where they say they are, what do we do about it?
Yeah, I'll take it. John Bennett, Chief of Staff. Thank you, Councilman Carlson. During the onboarding part, we've learned a lot about the meticulous keeping records between the attorney's office and human resources. And, you know, every year when you register for Know Your Role, every employee in the city has to inform us, obviously, where they live, what their response capabilities are. So there's a lot of checks and balances in the onboarding process about the residency requirement. And now that we have the strength in the tickler lists for those people that are on waiver, when they do change addresses, we're going to be able to proactively make sure that they either moved in within the waiver period that, again, I agree with Andrea, thanks to the Charter Review Commission, City Council, the public, everybody would offer those waivers so folks can transition into the city. But there are a lot of checks and balances. And one thing I'm doing with Kelly Austin's team is we are starting to do a lot of prescriptive housekeeping on annual review dates. And one of those things would be to make sure that those addresses are where they are across the entire city. Because God forbid we had an incident involving city staff, we have to be able to either reunify staff or with their loved ones. And there's just a lot of things that go on in emergency management and those type of areas. So those addresses are important.
Do you cross-check it with homestead exemption application or anything like that?
For the ones that would be, we do rely on the individual to do that. You know, I had to take myself off homestead myself when I moved in the city. So, you know, that's on the individual. It's a good question about, I think we could put that on the checklist. But right now, it's the residency and the elector part that we've been focused on. But as far as the homestead, we guide them to talk to the property appraiser to make sure that they understand the ramifications of that.
And just lastly, I think the feeling in the public, some people in the public think we should have residency requirements, some people think we don't, but I think most people think that if we have it, we should enforce it. So that's the reason why I'm asking the questions. Thank you.
Appreciate
it. Chief, a question. As I looked at the chart last night, I wrote in my notes, the Parks, Director of Parks and Recreation, how many do they supervise? How many employees in that department?
I'm just going to kind of swag it. I would say about 300.
300. Solid waste?
Hundreds.
Okay. So when I look at the chart, and I know from memory, I don't see code enforcement on there. And I know code enforcement has how many employees?
I want to say about 100.
So why would the code enforcement, if some of the other departments are equal to 100 employees, why would that be a manager versus the director? I have to ask that question.
No, it's a very good question. How departments and divisions and programs are organized tend to be based on responsibility, number of staff supervised. Police department-wise, 1,300. Fire department, over 700. Parks and Rec, over 300, with multiple divisions. So it's a combination of total number of employees, number of divisions, those things. I've worked in two major governments, and I have never seen code enforcement as a standalone department. They were both divisions, big divisions, but divisions of a larger department since I've been in government. But that doesn't mean, it's kind of how the city's organized. We could look at other cities our size, Miami, St. Pete, Orlando, and see if they stand alone, but in our case, it's always been a division that I'm aware of.
And that's kind of my point, because code enforcement has always had the name director, it never had the word manager. So if that was recently changed, and you look at the numbers, and I'm just saying through the grapevine, some of your own directors are questioning if we have these type of changes, and I have these number of employees, and that person has that number of employees, why is the name change different than others? So, and it's a valid point that some may be making. They're not going to tell you because, of course, they don't want to, be ostracized or what have you. But that's a concern I have to ask myself. If code enforcement has that number of employees to match up to any of these directors on here, then I don't understand why would there be a name change. And I think that's a valid question to ask. And going forward, I think that needs to be looked at. If you need to make changes on some of these charts, then I think it needs to happen, because if I'm a director and I've got this number of employees and that person is a manager, and getting that same type of salary as me, I would have a problem. So I'm just thinking we need to look at that and not bring up old issues, but for me, that's a problem, and I think that needs to be addressed and looked at in the future.
So, and you bring up a good point. One thing I had challenged Mike Swain's office and Kelly's office was to look at the stratification of directors. What's interesting, again, being in two major governments, is that everybody wants to be called a director as a working title. And, of course, the disparity between a workload of a manager, a division director, a full department director, an administrator, they're all unique scales. So we're trying to create a methodology that does exactly what you say and says, okay, either have this many bodies or this much of a budget or this much responsibility, and make sure that it's equitable across the city. Working with some other departments now that have divisions that are, they may not have 100 bodies, but they have a big responsibility in the city. And it could be one of the major parts of our strategic plan, and those should be looked at as division directors or even program directors. So it's a work in progress, but all very well taken and good points.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilman Maniscalco.
I don't know if this has been mentioned, this is off topic, but there's an item here, I'd like to ask that it be moved up, and let me tell you why. It's, I believe it's item 82, and I'll tell you why. There's a little girl in the back with her father and other people, and I know that they have to go. Is that possible to bring this up before lunchtime?
Can I have final comment on,
Yes,
on these two things? When I was first discussing this, I wanted department heads to live within the city limits in case of state of emergency, natural disaster, terroristic, whatever. Just so that all the department heads could be at the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center. And then I started thinking that if you have somebody living at 275 in Adamo Drive, that's 4 miles. That's outside the city limits. But yet, if you have a department head that lives in the farthest point of New Tampa, that's 12 miles? Who's going to be able to get to the Emergency Operations Center quicker? Just my 2 cents. Yes, let's go to
84, I'm sorry.
to agenda item number 84 very quickly.
Move to open all public hearings.
We have a motion to move all public hearings by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Could anybody be giving testimony at any time during these hearings to please rise, raise your right hand, and be sworn in? And
please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
thank you very much. Agenda item number 84. File number AB 2-22-21.
Thank you, Council. This is an application for an AB2 permit, special use 2. This application was approved unanimously by Council on January 26th meeting. Since then, we have submitted all recommended site plan revisions to staff. We have received no public comment, and we hope to gain your approval. Thank you. And I can answer any questions.
Your name, please.
Michael DeMeo, excuse me.
Thank you very much. Does that end your presentation?
Yes, it does. I have Mr. Horn here if he would like to answer any questions as well about the business, which I believe we addressed on January 26th.
Any questions of the petitioner? Is there anyone in chambers who would like to speak to agenda item number 84, file number AB 2-22-21?
Move to close.
A motion to close by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any further discussion? I just have one. As I stated prior, Ybor City does not need another package store. I know that you're saying this is going to be high-end, and I'll leave it there. Roll call vote. Oh, excuse me. Place your votes.
Well, we got to read it. We got to read it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you very much. I have an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. Ordinance approving a special use permit SU2 for alcoholic beverage sales, small venue consumption on premises, and package sales off premises consumption, and making lawful the sale of beverages regardless of alcoholic content, beer, wine, and liquor, at or from that certain lot, plot, or tract of land located at 1730 East 7th Avenue, is more particularly described in Section 2, providing that all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict are repealed, providing an effective date.
Second.
A motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Vieira. Place your votes and record.
Thank you very much, Council.
You got to wait for to see how everybody voted.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Yes. Chief and Assistant Chief, I know you came in here for the next agenda item, but we have a hard stop at 12 o'clock. And we will resume back at 1:30. Yes, sir. We are at recess.
You never change your